This podcast is part of the Planet Broadcasting Network.
Visit planetbcasting.com for more podcasts from our great mates.
Good morning, video games. Welcome once again to Filthy Casuals, a podcast about video games hosted by three very kind and extremely knowledgeable boys. My name is Tommy Dassalo, and with me as always...
Hello, I'm Ben Vanel. It's episode 114, and I'm Bruce Springsteen. Right? Right?
No.
Before the episode, you had to ask us what number this was, and also then you said, who is Bruce Springsteen again? So a little bit of the magic was taken out of that one for me, I have to say. And rounding out the trio, you know him, you love him.
It's me, the boss, Adam Knox.
Well, that's a bit derivative.
We are here doing our Game of the Year episode for 2017, an episode that we've been looking forward to for a long time.
That's right, 2017, and I'm Bruce Springsteen.
If you do that for all of the teens, I'm going to be fucking furious.
Yeah, and because you did flag that. You said it's going to be the same for a little while now, isn't it? So,
and I'm making sure this podcast ends on episode 212.
Definitely do that again next episode, I reckon.
I'm planning to.
The next episode next week.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, in the intro to next week's episode,
In the intro?
you owe me $100.
Maybe before the intro or edit it in separately?
Nah.
No.
I don't think you even have access to that file currently.
I feel like a real good boy.
So yes, the Game of the Year, we did this last year. It was a lot of fun.
We came up with the idea.
Yeah, we invented this.
A lot of copycats this year.
A lot of copycats.
Yeah.
A bit disappointing. IGN, I mean, just shameless stuff. Being ripped off by the big boys. But yeah, we've all been saying that we've been, it's been such an amazing year for video games.
Yeah.
Maybe the best ever?
Yeah, I reckon it is.
It's up there.
It's the best I can remember.
There was
as an adult, probably. Yeah.
1998 and 2004 are big ones.
Why?
Because 98 was Half-Life, Ocarina of Time, StarCraft, all these great things.
2004 was the year you lost your virginity?
Not even close. No.
I was 18.
Yeah, I was 17.
15 and too young. And that was Half-Life 2. I guess every year a Half-Life game has come out.
Right.
I'm like, that's a good year.
Yeah.
So 2058 will be a sick year for me.
But for sheer volume as well, I mean, some massive releases this year, but also now we're at a time where there's also heaps of sick indies coming out every week, it seems like. So doing this show has been great because it's meant that we have an excuse to keep up with stuff, but also kind of a burden because there's been so many great things that have come out that it's just been impossible to keep on top of all of them.
I've missed out on heaps that I've wanted to play.
Yeah, and I've spent a lot of money on games.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this episode, we've each got our own personal top fives for the Game of the Year, and we've also got a bunch of other categories that we've conferred on to give a bit more of a taste of what went on.
And we've each just got one for each of them. Is that correct? Pretty much?
Yeah.
There's
it varies.
Sure.
It varies.
Let's say yes.
I'm only doing one.
I am going to immediately go against that with our first category. But, But yeah, so there has been, it's been nigh on impossible to keep up with everything this year. So the first category is the Not Gone In Yet award for stuff that we wish we had gotten to or wish we had gotten more time to. There's a lot on this for me. Yeah. But
Some of them you've played.
Yeah, exactly. This is actually just my top 5 as well. This doubles as my top 5.
I'm going to call out a big one that is a pretty glaring hole for me in this year especially. It's PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
It's arguably from many outlets and perspectives the best game of the year.
Yeah.
And it's
I just
one of
haven't played it.
One of the biggest in the world at the moment.
Totally,
now too.
30 million, I think, people playing it, which is fucking ridiculous.
That sounds crazy to me, but maybe
I read
know.
it. I read it this morning in my
Imagine
research.
30 million of anything.
Yeah, come to one of my fucking comedy shows. You'll see 30 million people
Bad
enjoying
jokes.
19 jokes. No!
Yes!
No!
The Emperor has fallen.
I'm melting!
But that's more than the population of Australia. That's a fucking lot of people playing a game.
It's kind of weird because it's kind of only on there's an Xbox version of it now that's fucking shit.
Apparently,
by all accounts.
Yeah.
So what you're trying to say is, Ben, literally every single person in Australia is playing PlayerUnknown's Battleground, and then just like a bunch of people in Fiji and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And no other countries have it yet, right?
No.
That's correct.
When it hits the US.
That's how maths works. It's Australia and then, New Zealand, Fiji, and I think the Maldives?
Yes. Great. Big over in the Maldives.
Yeah.
That's not really a regret for me because it's not on anything that I own yet. So I really want to play it, but I
And the PC version is the only one you'd want to play at the moment, and you kind of need a pretty good one to play it. But you have that.
I do, and that's why it's a regret. I haven't got around to it. I have to set my PC up again, and I just haven't. And I did for one of the games on one of my lists later on, but I just didn't get around to playing this. And I think there's also an element of me being worried that I'll just get addicted to it like I would WoW or something like that.
It's one of those weird things as well with a multiplayer game like that where I got in on it when it was starting.
Yeah.
And it's very weird to come to that sort of thing later on because everyone's gotten so good at it. You're still trying to figure your way out. It is a weird kind of game as well. Like the controls and stuff take a bit of getting used to.
Right.
People can go back to the show a couple of months and listen. You're a big time early adopter of this game. You've been blowing its little horn for maybe 6 months now.
Again, I'm sick of IGN following suit with this podcast.
Sick of those 30 million people copying everything I do.
But I haven't played it yet, so I think I still have a lot of like rose-colored glasses in terms of like what I think it is, because it sounds like this great strategic, like Survivor-esque, like planning and hiding and taking people down and allying, and it's like if it's not that good in reality, then I'll be let down.
The only thing you've said there that doesn't really happen is allying, except you can play it with teams as well. So like, it's fucking sick, and now's a good time because it's properly like the official released version of it is out now.
Yeah, okay.
There's another map.
Yeah, I've got a week off work.
Yeah. I reckon we'll end up talking about that game later on though, maybe. So,
yeah, okay. Interesting. Tommy's got more thoughts?
Well,
what's yours, Knoxy?
Do you want to hear my... let me just look up this list.
Scrolling through a list of 30 million bad jokes.
Yeah. Divinity Original Sin 2 is the one for me that I've not got in on yet, because that was another fucking like 100-hour-long RPG thing.
Yeah, right.
It looks like exactly my shit.
Yep.
From like my...
Big brown, just smelly.
Yeah, a lot of corn in there. A lot of just wrappers of foods that I've not bothered to take off.
Wow.
Sometimes I eat like a bear, where I just go.
Yeah.
It's a shame that corn's the only thing really that shows up in shit in its full original form. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean a shame?
I don't know. For the sake of comedy and being able to illustrate a shit like perfectly for cartooning.
Yeah.
I wish when you vomited it was like at Mad Magazine and a full fish skeleton would just come out.
Oh, yeah.
It's a shame that's I feel let down by the real world. I feel like I was betrayed by Mad Magazine.
Yeah, I've never seen a cat with a fish skeleton either.
Yeah.
Walking around with... I've never fished a boot out of the ocean. Cartoons lied to me. When that anvil hit my head, it fucking hurt.
Yeah, you were irreparably changed.
I mean, it hurts in the cartoons too. It's not like they go, that was pleasant.
Yeah,
it turned into like an accordion.
Yeah.
The worst instrument.
It's this massive... I just didn't have it in me to do another 100-hour-long thing.
Yeah.
This is something that, 15 years ago, I probably would have sunk my teeth into straight away.
When you were...
A bear.
13.
Okay.
You got all the time in the world.
All the time in the world.
Yeah.
Well, I mean... You've sort of just discovered masturbating, so your schedule kind of disappears pretty rapidly.
That's true.
Yeah, but I can multitask.
Oh, wow.
I reckon you did jerk off and play video games a lot when you were 13.
Of course I didn't. It's impossible. You need both hands. That's the only reason I didn't.
Depends on the game, though. Is that why the Wii remote was invented?
Well, they went through that series. Like, obviously, it's for people who only have one functional hand, but they went through that thing of making one-handed controllers for a while.
Oh, right.
And I don't see a lot of them anymore.
Yeah.
I guess because I don't read video game magazines with ads in them. You'd have to Google it. I bet if I Googled it, they're still there.
You're also not buying One-Armed People magazines.
Yeah.
No,
And they're getting a lot of traction in there.
Yeah. You should really just make a pamphlet rather than a magazine if it's for someone
It
with
shouldn't
one
need to
hand.
be turned,
Yeah.
I mean,
it should
you've
just be
already
like
got-
a long scroll, like a big parchment.
But if you got People magazine, just put one-armed on the start. That's save on your printing costs.
Just put the one-armed stuff on the cover.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then they can get all they need out of it. They don't need to turn the pages. They're set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make
Is
it
this
free.
offensive?
I had that thought about 35 seconds ago.
I like to think you'd have to be pretty good-humoured about it.
Yeah.
I'd probably be a bit annoyed. Anyway, I've written a few others here, but like it's basically every game I didn't play this year.
I mean,
Yeah.
Wolfenstein 2 I didn't play, and I'm still curious to see if I'd like it. There's a whole bunch.
Yakuza 0 was a big
Yep.
one for me
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, where
Yep.
that again looks extremely my shit, but it's like, oh cool, you have 60 to 80 hours?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I do not.
Gravity Rush 2 was one that you were kind of hyping early.
I was really excited for it early on in the year, and then
yeah.
it just very quickly just got away from me. And it was
Yeah.
like, I think it was like because Horizon came out in Jan or Feb.
Yeah, it was real early.
pretty
yeah.
early on in the year.
Just before Breath of the Wild. So,
Yeah, yeah.
And did you play Prey?
Yeah.
Knox? Yeah. I still am curious to play that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I really want to get around to the South Park game at some point,
Right.
which
Right.
I didn't get a
Yeah.
chance to do.
Yeah.
And then the two that Horizon Zero Dawn, I want to play more of. It
Sure.
just suffered from coming
Sure.
out 2 weeks or a week before Breath of the Wild or
Yeah.
whatever it was. But the big one for me is Uncharted: The Lost Legacy.
Yeah, right.
I played it for just long enough to be able to talk about it on the podcast, and then just had to move on to other stuff. And
Right.
it speaks a lot about the quality of and the volume of everything that came out this year, where an Uncharted game can come out and kind of fall by the wayside.
Sure,
Like
sure.
I think that's pretty telling. But
Totally.
Yeah,
That kind of
liked-
sums the year up, really.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
yeah.
I liked everything I played about it. You guys both finished it, and
Yeah.
Yep.
I liked the fact that it was a bit more compact than a standard Uncharted game. But yeah, that's I think that's the first thing I'm going to get to.
Yeah,
with a
right.
bit of free time, maybe over the summer.
Yeah. It's not super long as well. You can knock that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's my big regret of like I can't believe in any other year and Uncharted was our game of the year of 1 year,
Yeah.
and for one to come out and just be pretty easy to forget about is
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I played that South Park game and completely had forgotten about it
Yeah.
until just then.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something we should point out here as well, is like if we don't mention something,
Like we're going to mention a lot, and we will have wanted to mention more as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And there'll just be so much stuff that we can
I would
get
have liked to play the Metroid game that came out on the 3DS.
ASMS Returns? was it?
Yeah. Night in the Woods looks cool, and I'm
Yeah.
still wanting to get around to that.
Neo and Hollow Knight, both for me.
Yep,
Hollow Knight
yep.
especially.
Yeah, Neo looks like I'd be into it.
Again, not that I have the means to play it, but Cuphead I was super interested in to just have a crack at.
Yep.
Yeah, so much good stuff.
Cool.
Yep. There's actually a lot of indies as well. There was that game that I think you played, Knox, the space one, where it's like a story.
Tacoma.
Tacoma.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
started and never finished, but I was really into it.
Yeah.
That's happened a lot, actually. A lot of games that I'm really, really digging, like this style of. Get an hour in and then it's like, oh, fuck, another AAA release I've got to play for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that sort of stuff when it is like, that was maybe 6 hours or 4 hours long or something. When
Right.
it is that short, you kind of want to go through it all in one block. If you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that almost makes it weirdly harder to get around to.
Yep.
Because it's, you just don't find that chunk of time very
Yeah.
often.
I don't have time to watch 2 movies in a row.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we got to make a note of some of these, and then hopefully, the start of next year, being a little quieter. Like we'll have the time
Yeah.
to kind of revisit some of these.
Yeah, we're talking about our 2018 games of the year now. This
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
Don't bother listening in 1 year's time.
yeah.
2018 game of the year, Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah, right.
All right, the next category we had was the Stones on These Guys award for
It's
biggest,
pretty self-explanatory.
biggest gronk.
Yeah,
We don't need
yeah.
to explain what that means.
No.
Okay.
Everyone in every country will know what the Stones on These Guys' biggest gronk will
Certainly,
mean.
if you've been listening for only weeks or at most,
Yeah.
you definitely get the context.
Certainly, the 30 million people in Australia alone that listen to this podcast will know what it is.
Yeah. The
but-
Stones on These Guys is the biggest Australian saying. It's the most well-known Australian phrase.
Yeah, it's on my citizenship form.
on your citizenship.
That's because it's your official name.
It was like my whole family got the one form because we were kids at the time, and it says the stones on these guys for coming over here, thinking they can live here.
Jeez.
And then the Prime Minister's drawn himself flipping the bird.
He drew himself.
Yeah.
He was overseeing your official application.
John Howard was there going...
Don Howard?
Yeah, John Howard.
You moved here in the Howard administration?
Yeah.
And you have no accent.
I have an accent.
You have a full Australian accent.
Yeah.
And in spite of moving here during the Howard
I got my
administration.
citizenship during that.
Right.
It would have been... Who was before Howard? John...
Keating?
Paul Keating? Yeah, he might have been it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might have been it.
You know what? I wasn't paying an enormous...
It was a game of tag.
I wasn't paying an enormous amount of attention to politics when I was 6 years old.
Well, and look what's happened to the world.
I don't have a clue, yeah. This is basically just real, like... I don't know how to explain what this...
Real shit work.
Yeah, just balls out fucking it up. Just, hey everyone, we're going to do this and it's not going to be good for many people.
It's not for a bad game, it's for a particularly shitty individual or company just doing what they can to ruin the sacred institution of gaming.
Yes, with no regard for anyone.
Yeah. A thing that an industry that until these guys came along had no problems to speak of whatsoever. A utopia of sorts, if you will.
Yes.
So do you want to kick us off, Knox? Or should I start?
Well,
We've each got our own one, right?
Yeah. I reckon Bethesda had some pretty huge stones on them for their monthly Skyrim re-releases this year.
Stones on these guys.
That's what I've chosen. Of like, it kind of represents the number of re-releases there are anyway. Of like, just really starting to scrape the bottom of that barrel now.
Yep.
And I will say, I was defensive of it for most of the year, like it coming out, Skyrim coming out on the Switch, because I was like, well, I've never played it. I've got a Switch. It'll be cool. And got it and just went, okay, I get it now. This should not be being re-released at full price as is in 2017.
Completely. On the Switch, in VR. Last year it was those special editions, which there's not enough like fixing of that game that needed to be done that has been done to any of those versions.
Sure, that first special edition was just like slightly better graphics.
Yeah. So it's not even the fact that it's a re-release, it's the fact that it's just this very canned, okay, chuck it out the door. Like the Crash Bandicoot thing, that was fine.
Yeah.
Because they did some shit to it, but Skyrim is just like this, with the VR version especially, I haven't played it, but I've watched someone play it.
Right.
From through a window, and they haven't changed that game functionally enough to make it compatible with VR in enough of a real way to make it worth it.
It's the full game. It's the same full game, but you have the headset on and you're like kind of looking around.
Totally.
Okay.
And then you're looking at something and hitting a button to pick up that object or whatever, like you could in the game, and then kind of looking around with your face to move the object, which is fucking silly.
Yeah.
And the Switch port like doesn't work that great. Or like it runs fine.
I mean, I think if you already had a deep love for it, that's pretty much the only person it's for. If you've already played it through and you love it, and you've got a Switch and you want to be able to take it on the go, anyone else who's never been in before, you just can't get into it. It's hard to play.
Even if you loved it at the time, it's now a 6-year-old game that is being recreated verbatim for what it was.
Yeah,
just a one-to-one thing, and it doesn't hold up in my opinion anymore. Yeah. So it's. I reckon they've got some stones for...
It's pretty massive stones.
And it won't be the last one either.
Oh, really?
There'll be Skyrim on other shit.
Okay, what do you reckon? What's next?
I don't know. But there'll be something.
Well,
a mobile version at some point, probably.
I've got a new entrant for this category based on what you just said. I think you're going to find yourself in the mix, my friend. The stones on this guy for making a definitive statement and then when pushed, not being able to provide any kind of example.
Not one example.
There will be a mobile version. There'll be versions on whatever the new consoles are.
There'll be a mobile version. There must be some kind of mobile version.
That game will be the eternal, like, the Hello World equivalent thing.
It probably could play on an iPad, right?
You could make it work on there. I don't think it'd be fun, but I reckon you can make it work on there.
Yeah, that'll be next.
Yeah.
All right, Ben.
My entrant, my nominee for the Stones on These Guys award is EA for everything they've done in the past 12 months.
Right.
Including, and Knox, you kind of brought this up, and I've totally forgotten, they fucked Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Like, Mass Effect was a fantastic trilogy of games, like up there with my favourites of all time. Even the third one, which wasn't as well received, but fucking Andromeda was just a shit game. It was bad. The animations were bad. That was kind of called out quite early. But the story was boring. The gameplay was just worse than it had been previously. And
it was just really flat and buggy and,
They withdrew support for the game almost immediately. No one really liked it. Like people, I've read, a few people who are like our listeners, in our Facebook group being like, look, I played it because I love Mass Effect and it was fine, but it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And it should have been great.
Yeah.
It was a great series.
It does seem like a sort of a death sentence for that series now of like, oh, well, this has gone forever.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a real shame.
So you're saying for the crime of looking at the landscape of 2017 and deciding let's actively do everything we can to make everything we touch turn to shit.
Yes.
The stones on these guys.
Yes.
Well, because then the bigger thing, or like the more recent thing was Battlefront.
Yeah, Battlefront, which I didn't have as big a problem with as a game, but the microtransaction stuff in that, and it turns out like all their sporting games and other
Need
games.
for Speed and whatever as well.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, like, even if you're a company that is also making games and putting microtransactions in, you'd be shitty at them as well for being the straw that broke the camel's back, where they just pushed it too far.
So maybe they're kind of heroes for that, if anything. Maybe this shit's going to go away because they pushed it too far.
Like Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, like he was so fucked and evil that it just got to breaking point. Yeah, okay.
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just now they're going to have to get craftier about how they do it.
Oh, they probably will, those crafty bastards.
Yeah. and hey, again, here we go. This will be the 2018 stones on these guys.
Yeah.
So
Sneaking
finding a
them
way
in there.
around.
Yeah.
I can't think of any crafty way to make someone give you $1 though. You know what I mean?
Have you been to a casino?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
There's a lot of ways.
I bet you $1 that I can find a way.
Ooh!
Oh shit! I nearly went for that. I reckon, you know how people don't really grift each other in the same way anymore?
Yeah.
Right.
Like in the late 1800s, I reckon I would have gotten grifted a lot.
I
Like I
reckon
would
you
have bought a bunch of snake oil and shit.
I reckon you would either have been grifted or been a grifter.
I might have become a grifter.
Yeah.
After I got really badly grifted, I
Yeah.
would have gone to that grifter and gone, hey, you grifted me. And he said,
teach me how to grift.
yeah.
Isn't like, and
Oculus
I know
grift.
we're on there, but isn't Patreon a form of grifting?
No, it's not a con.
There's some
Yeah.
people that are, but there are some people that are on there just going like, oh, I'm just living my daily life, and being an artist is hard. Give me money, and I'll put a fucking postcard in the mail for you.
I mean,
There's a lot of
Snake Oil Salesman is like Star Citizen is a classic example of that. It's
Maybe.
going, hey, this is great. It's going to be great. It'll make you feel great, and then it just doesn't come through.
Well, there's a lot of Kickstarters that, just haven't panned out. Like, someone was telling me about a watch they bought on Kickstarter 4 years ago, and just that person's fucked off.
Oh, yeah, I think I was talking to the same person. Yeah.
Well, who is this mysterious person?
I can't say.
They had no idea what time it was either. they were running very late, so they just ran away.
Was it
afterwards.
about the watch that made it so special?
Was it Meso?
I can't remember. I don't remember who we were talking to. It could have been.
Yeah, but yeah, like you just sign up for a Kickstarter and you're like, oh, it's a cool watch, it floats. And then they never deliver it.
That's on him. Just get a Casio, dude.
Yeah, just get a Casio and a helium balloon.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
My one is if you cast your mind back to E3, there was a game announced for the Xbox called The Last Night, which looked like a kind of cool Blade Runner inspired sort of action game. A lot of people went, this looks amazing. Then all of a sudden we find out the guy making it, big time MRA, red pill, the absolute stones on this guy. To put this game out and make us all think it looks cool without having full disclosure. It should have had there should have been like a little warning screen before the trailer.
Well, I'm interested to see if
a trigger warning, you might say.
Well, because like people afterwards started saying this game has these values in it or whatever, but I haven't seen any of that, so I'm interested to see when that game comes out.
Yeah,
if it's because then he was saying like, "Oh, that's me from a few years ago.
Yeah.
I've changed what I believe about stuff. This game isn't that."
Right,
Yeah.
but
blah, blah, blah.
I think the initial thing that people were like picked up on was him saying something like, "Imagine a world where feminists won," or something like that.
And that
being a bad thing.
and they drew the line between that maybe is what this game is.
Yeah,
But we'll see when it comes out.
Yeah.
But the stones on him, you can't deny that.
Yeah.
The absolute stones on him. So the next category, this is for the Stuck the Landing award, which is...
I like how us there's so much pomp and circumstance to how we're doing these as well. Like, okay, the next category.
Yeah.
I wish the Oscars were like that, where they just all right, best actor is...
Yeah. And they move on when the presenters from the previous award just run out of steam. When they're just allowed to riff for as long as it's good, and then when they're like... Anyway, and then the next two presenters come out. That's much better than being played off.
Oh, totally.
Like that'd be, when they get good presenters, it's like, cool, let's watch 20 minutes of Steve Carell going crazy.
Yeah,
That's sick.
I want to see Franco and Rogan riff for a while.
Well, if I get bored of any of the riffs that we're doing, I'm going to start playing you guys off.
Okay.
And feel free to do the same to me. Yeah.
like it.
I don't know the Oscars song.
That was it.
Yeah.
So this is the Stuck the Landing Award. We did a version of this last year. This is for I guess another way of phrasing it would be the biggest surprise of the year. Something that looked like it was perhaps destined for failure.
If you read it on paper, it's like, oh, well, that's fucking stupid.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that at least two of us might have the same one for this.
I've written down a second one because of that.
Because of Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle?
Exactly because of that game.
Also, we should say, because of what you just did, we spent a half an hour before this going through categories and writing stuff down, and I was sort of saying at the time, I wish this could be an episode because it was a lot of, I think I know what you two are going, so I'm just going to betray what I actually think and write down a different one.
Yeah.
Just this
like
bizarre game of second guess, thinking, you two are so transparent that I'm able to see into your heads.
It's a game of poker where no one wins or loses.
Yeah. I kind of hope later on we all pick games we don't believe should win.
Yeah. You are such a one-dimensional person that it is so easy to see what you're going to pick. Anyway, yes, I did have Mario Rabbids. But we've been talking about that game on the show for quite a while, from it being leaked, and I didn't want it to be happening. I thought that it sounded
you plugged your ears and yelled the whole time.
Yeah. You punched a hole in the wall. It's not my Mario.
Snapped my Switch in half. It just sounded bizarre and weird, and then I loved it. It's such a great game, and you could almost say that the Stuck the Landing thing kind of applies to almost Ubisoft as a whole this year, where they didn't have a lot of, they'd sort of done weren't in the best standing going into the year, and then Assassin's Creed Origins people really like.
They've really supported Rainbow Six Siege, which I haven't played, but apparently that's going great. For Honor kind of died off.
Yeah, but I think at least it was initially a good game. Like I really liked it.
Ghost Recon Wildlands, they've done some stuff with.
People who like that love it. Like that is very well supported, and
they're chucking the Predator in it as well, which is a great idea.
Yeah, it's very fun. Yeah, Ubisoft's a great one.
Yeah.
South Park was pretty good.
Oh, were they? Okay, yeah.
Didn't
know that.
So you guys both pick Mario Rabbids?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go Resident Evil 7.
Okay.
Because a lot of stuff about that game, like, they changed all of it.
Right.
I loved 4. You love 4 as well. They switched to a first-person perspective. Said we're making it this kind of different thing. It looked like it was kind of aping that horror game trend of, like, Outcast or Outlast or whatever it's called. First person, slow movement, very like...
Amnesia is one of those ones.
Yeah. And I have never really been into any of those games. And I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't going to be the action-y Resident Evil that they turned into. And it turned out great. It turned out really fun. The combat was good. Like, it wasn't as good as it could have been. It had some... problems with it, like the sort of back half, the pacing got really weird, and it probably, for as short of a game it was, dragged on too long weirdly. But it looked fantastic. The VR thing is by all accounts incredible. I haven't had a chance to play the VR.
Because it was early in the year.
Yeah, it was like January.
A great example of a thing that, in any other year, I probably would have gotten around to it at some point, but
I really ended up enjoying it and was very trepidatious about it before it coming out.
I really wish they would just make like Resident Evil 4 2, like a sequel to that game.
Totally.
Like do that again.
5 and 6 didn't really scratch that same itch because they were the same sort of thing, but 5 had that weird co-op element to it, and 6 was very like clunky in weird ways and just like not great. None of them have hit what 4 was.
Yeah. Right.
But 7 was a cool new thing.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see more of that style.
Right. I watched a playthrough because I was too scared to play it. And it looked awesome.
It is pretty scary too.
Yeah.
That was a cool. It was the best sort of tense horror game I've played in a very long time.
Right.
And without being just the sort of jumpy, like, oh, there's something coming to get you.
Right.
And it is that, but you feel like you...
That doesn't sound scary at all. Every time a monster is about to appear, a voice comes over and goes, something's coming to get you.
Uh-oh, who's around the corner?
Here comes the aeroplane. Open wide.
Aeroplane looks a bit fleshy and gross, though.
It's the big fat guy from Modern Family. He just appears in the corner of the screen. It's coming to get you.
So I reckon Resident Evil 7, good game, and it didn't seem like it was going to be.
Right. But you still had some issues with it.
I did, but they were only pretty slight overall, and I liked the general thing of what it did. There were just some specifics with it.
Right.
Also, Capcom have been kind of fucked the last little bit. Like Street Fighter V was a mess, and I can't remember the last really good thing they put out.
Yeah.
And Resident Evil 7 was it.
Yeah, they're a bit of they've gotten into that territory of like the name used to, it was like such a like guaranteed these guys know what they're doing.
Totally.
And they've sort of been taking the piss a little bit.
But Resident Evil 7 is like a pretty bold new direction, and I think it paid off.
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. All right, and then this is the kind of the sister category, the Fucked It Award.
Yeah.
Well, this is the inverse. It had everything going for it.
Why didn't we call it Fuck the Landing? Stuck the landing and fucked the landing make more sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there something else that rhymes with landing that makes more sense?
Fucked the...
Standing?
Yeah, that's better.
What, stuck the landing and fucked the standing?
Fucked the branding.
Ooh.
And it could like ruin the series.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
We should say last year these were called the whoa.
Yes.
For
slip up.
For the slip up, and then that was a close one.
Yeah.
For the
For any completionists.
Yes. The continuity department was just ringing in and going, you got to mention this.
Yeah.
Ben was wearing a bow tie in last year's episode.
You were holding the glass with your left hand.
Working in continuity on a film would be a pretty rough job, don't you think? Like a lot to keep it on top of. But then I also imagine, like, if you're the person that has to go to the actor and go, hey, sorry, you're actually meant to be holding that mug in your right hand, you'd get a lot of... you know what I mean? Just exasperated.
Christian Bale freakouts at you.
Yeah.
Like, my character would hold it in the left.
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't holding it in the right hand.
Totally.
All right, I'll fucking play the footage then.
That thing of like when someone's smoking a cigarette and having to have the ash the right length would drive me insane.
Like, you're just doing your job, but by doing that, you just look like the most anal, just obsessive person.
Totally. I think I'm going to apply to do this. I think this is my calling.
I can actually picture you in that role perfectly.
Yeah.
Like,
just like kind of sweating with a clipboard, but like fucking put it in the...
You're just...
But
then in one scene, like, someone's crying in one take and smiling in the next, and you can't tell the difference.
Louder, guys, but that cup or you're just 3 degrees to the left.
You're just inventing continuity that doesn't exist so that you get to go and have more of those awkward conversations. Like, this is my heroine. This is sick. All right, so yes, the fucked the branding.
Yeah,
good enough.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Continuity-wise, it's slightly different than before, but mine is PUBG Xbox.
Yo, good one, yeah.
Which I mentioned before to you, Knox. Like, I haven't played it, but by all reports, and as someone who wants to play this on a console, really, it sounds like they fucked it.
I was really keen for the Xbox version and everything, and I watched some videos of it and stuff. They seem to have really fucking made the controls really weird.
Right.
Because they've translated every single element of the PC controls. So you got 100 buttons on a keyboard.
Yeah.
And they've kind of jammed them into that controller, which maybe isn't the right way to go about it. Like, simplify them a bit.
Yeah, simplify them.
That was part of my problem with Skyrim. It's where it's the same thing where you've got all the keys, but doing it on a controller and having to go to all the menus is just so takes you right out of it.
But then the main thing is just the technical aspects of that game are absolutely fucked. And it's early access and shit right now, so it could get better. But
that's weird to have it be to have it be early access on PC for quite a while now, and it seems like they've not learnt and translated any of that across. Like that's bizarre.
Yeah, and it's like it looks unplayable in that. I'm not going to buy it on that at any time soon because I would love to play the console version too. But it goes down to like 10 frames a second. If there's any people around,
and like honestly, at this point, I'm probably more likely to get a cheap Xbox to play some of those games than I am to get another gaming PC.
Yeah, Xboxes are very cheap now.
They're really cheap.
Brand new. And it's just a shame that even on the Xbox One X, which is like the most powerful console in the world, it's got grimy, shitty textures. It runs like garbage and it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a good pick.
My backup pick was going to be Microsoft in general.
Right.
But I kind of feel like they've just kind of continued to not really do anything that's caught my interest.
It's kind of too early to tell if they've like fucked it or not. Like,
they seem to be. So the thing now is that I think it's clever what they're doing. If everything's on the Xbox and the PC.
Yeah.
Focus on games.
Sure.
And they're out there headhunting for studios and stuff. Apparently, at the moment, they know where their problems are.
But I guess a couple of kind of end of year review pieces that I've read have just kind of called them out for bringing out the most, like you said, the most powerful console in the world, but not really having any exclusive games that you want to play on it.
I think a lot of that shit is the previous administration or whatever fucking it in like 2013.
Yeah, sure.
And this being a knock-on of that still.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
Obamacare.
Drone strikes.
It was the Howard...
No, you're right. But also, like, this time last year, there was a big question mark over Nintendo and how all that was going to go, and then they've had a pretty remarkable year. So who knows? This could be... It seems like they kind of... It's in place for them if it's ever going to click. Like, now's the time where it kind of needs to.
I'm looking forward to Sea of Thieves more than I have in the past as well. They showed some stuff about what that game actually is.
Right,
and it looks fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
I kind of feel like because Nintendo... They took a big hit with the Wii U. Like, they just had to reassess.
Yeah.
I feel like Microsoft is just kind of gradually trending downwards.
Yeah, they haven't had that big... Yeah, you're right. They haven't had that big kind of phoenix moment of like...
They haven't hit rock bottom.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But, PUBG Xbox is my official choice.
Yeah.
My pick is ukulele.
Nice.
Something that as a big time Nintendo 64 boy, loved Banjo-Kazooie and all the Rare games and this... same team that worked on them, big throwback to those games. And it just, I could barely play it. It just, something, whatever it was, just everything about it was just slightly off. It should have been, I don't know, it should have been a home. You looked at it, I thought it all looked good, it all looked fun. I was so positive about it. And it just did not grab me in any way.
Yeah.
Like, probably my biggest disappointment of the year. Something I was the most looking forward to.
This is a classic one for the fucked it category as well, because it did have everything going for it. It had the same people working on it that made a couple of the best games of all time. And then they just fucking didn't do a good job.
It was crazy how actually bad that game was. Like it just felt shitty to play. Felt like a very early demo of it or something. The camera and everything was just kind of busted. It looked crap. It looked gross kind of in a weird way.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's I know they've patched it a bunch and it's now out on the Switch, which it feels like kind of very unceremoniously just arrived on Switch because no one gave a fuck about it for the rest of the year on PS4 and Xbox. And I kind of got tempted to go in. It's like, oh, no, I play it portable and I guess if they've tweaked it and stuff. But also now it's out on Switch and it's out in a post Mario Odyssey world, which why would you bother now that you can get that? That was my thinking. It would tide me over. It's like this will be a nice little stopgap before Mario Odyssey, but it just felt like nothing. It just felt devoid of any kind of the character or the spirit that made those original games so fun. It just felt like a really bland, like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy.
Right. Yeah. And to come out in this year and be like, we're revitalizing the platformer genre, and then, A Hat in Time, I've heard good things about as well, which is the same sort of thing, but I haven't played that. That's another one I didn't get around to. But Mario Odyssey, for all that stuff to come out at the same time, be like, oh, we did it.
Yeah.
These guys came back because of us.
Real shame.
Yeah.
Hey, if anyone's played it, if anyone's gone in again since they patched it and stuff and thinks it's, markedly better, I'd love to, if we hear it, if I heard enough, I'd be tempted to give it another go.
You want to like it.
I want to like it.
Yeah.
I bought that fucking thing, so I want to,
Maybe
I'll have a look at it. So I've got two here, and they're a little harsher because neither of these games are terrible.
Well, you're the king of Sting.
I just need to call it how I see it, baby. So the primary one is Call of Duty World War II.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just mainly in terms of the studio who did it, I really liked Advanced Warfare, which was the last one that they did. And
with Kit Harington?
No, that it was with Kevin Spacey.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
why did you say his name like that?
I just got tired.
Right.
Call of Duty World War II.
We're recording this in July. Why did you whisper why did you whisper his name like that? Don't know why I felt it relevant to point out the timing of this, but it seems weird that here in July you would whisper Kevin Spacey's name like that.
And have an opinion about Mario plus rabbits. It just sort of how much of a downward trajectory that series has been on, and how much this just sort of continued that. Where this was really my kind of last chance moment for them.
But did this fuck it? You didn't think it was going to be good going in. You didn't have any hopes for it, did you?
I think the elements that it fucked were making the multiplayer very just less slick and continuous as it had than it had been.
Right.
All the sort of lobby stuff is shitty.
Okay.
And it's just a little bland. And then I haven't really played the zombies mode because I've always hated that.
Right.
And then the single player to be like, we're doing World War II in the real way, and they have this very American focused and very light dusting of like the Holocaust happened,
right?
And to deal with it in the manner that they did was just it's poorly made,
right?
Yeah.
Was it poorly received across the board?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I
have a feeling that you disliked it a lot more than a lot of people.
Maybe, and it's not.
Which I would definitely agree with you, I'm sure. But I have a feeling that it went okay.
I think it's one of those weird things where when people review video games a lot of the time, if the base mechanics of it are fine, then they get much more positive reviews than I think they deserve.
Sure.
Which people never do that with movies of like, oh, the camera was in focus.
Yeah.
So this movie's a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it has going for it is like, but even the shooting was just more boring than it's been in a long time. Yeah.
Right.
And the other one, which this is kind of harsh, is Prey.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to love that game because it's in that genre that I really like of the BioShock. You too.
Yeah.
And it just kind of didn't do it for me.
Right.
Because of just a lot of the different elements of it didn't come together. The enemies were never really interesting. It had some weird decisions with it where like the constant sort of blips on your screen of where you're meant to be going, fuck that type of game up.
Right. Removes the tension.
It just sort of never quite got there, and it really seemed like they sincerely tried, but it just didn't happen for me. So
well, this is a game that I saw on a lot of like top games of the year lists.
And this is one of the most disappointing for me, just because and thinking about it since then, like I've kind of just not given a fuck about it, and it should have been better than I think it turned out to be, or it could have been. So it's kind of harsh to put it in this category, but I was disappointed by it.
Yeah,
right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, then following on, we have the category, the It's Fine Award for something that we played, and it's fine.
Yep. This is also Prey. So like this is middleist game of the year, I guess.
Yeah. Well, mine is Shadow of War.
Mine too.
Yeah. And this was actually going to be in my honorable mentions, and kind of probably still should be. But it had the opportunity to improve so much on the first game, which I really liked as it was.
Yeah.
And then it's these fucking microtransactions, they came in and they slowed the pace down. And they just made all of these fun, cool new mechanics a bit more tedious than they should have been.
Yeah. And a lot of that game, a lot of their ideas in that game were just going more.
Yeah.
Like
more
multiply it by 5.
Yeah. But then in some cases, like different kinds of enemies, like there was like trolls and ogres and like different kind of weird versions of just orcs, and making them come onto your side and building an army was all fun until they fucking put like a brick wall in front of you and said, buy this sledgehammer off us.
Yeah.
Like, it was a real shame. But so that's why it's fine for me, because like it could have been better. But it was fine.
You didn't hate it, but it's a shame to have a sequel that doesn't really outshine the first one.
I'm going to pick a very similar one then as my one, since you picked Shadow of War. Destiny 2.
Right.
I thought was such a retreading of what the first one did ultimately. Now with that, how the DLC stuff's gone too.
Yeah,
they've made a lot of the same mistakes of the first one again.
Right.
And the shooting in it is really good. Probably the best you can buy these days.
Yeah, I think so.
Like the actual core stuff of it. But then I hated all of the everything that anybody said in that game.
That's right.
And it just kind of fizzled for me. You know what? It just there wasn't. It felt there was no heart to it. There was no real sort of anything beyond the minute to minute, second to second shooting that felt great to me in that game. Where it is fine.
Yeah.
This is a game that I've seen on some worst of the year lists.
I don't
think it's that
too. Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I think it's the same thing as for me with Prey, possibly with people like that, where it could be so much more than they've made it,
right?
And they really just don't seem to want to do that with it for whatever reason, or maybe aren't capable of it.
Sure.
But it's such a retreading of exactly the same beats that happened with the first one, of it coming out and going, oh, there's maybe not a lot of stuff in here, or maybe this is like a little repetitive.
Right.
Then the DLC shows up, it's like, oh, this is the same stuff again.
Yeah.
And is locked out stuff that I did used to have, and now I have to buy the DLC for it. All of the weird stuff, like microtransaction-y stuff in that, I don't like either.
Yeah.
The
silver buying the silver.
The multiplayer is a bit fucked in certain ways. Like some of the weapons are just better than others, and they're trying to fix that stuff as they go on. But it's fine.
Yeah, fair enough.
I knew that both of you guys were going to pick Shadow of Mordor, and I would have done that too, but I picked something different. No, mine, really the only one that really stuck out to me as being it's fine was Crash Bandicoot. Like, I
That's interesting.
Looked great. Like, liked it enough, but having not played the original ones, like I thought it was fine, and maybe that's down to it being on the time it came out, it being on the PS4. Maybe if it had been on the Switch, I would have played it a bit more on planes and stuff like that. But I got it and went, this looks great. I like what they've done with the remaster. I liked the couple of hours that I spent with it, but I just didn't feel like there was anything that kind of. I'm glad that I have them and that I can kind of dip in a bit as I want, but I mean it's always going to be a bit of a case where it's like it's really kind of a nostalgic thing, which I don't have I don't have the original attachment to. So
right.
I think it's still good in spite of that. Like I think it's still better than. I think you can still enjoy it even if you don't have that original attachment to it. But it just didn't. It was fine. Yeah.
I actually, now that you mention that, I feel that way about a lot of the games on the SNES Classic Mini that I never played as a kid.
Yeah.
That's like, they're good. I can tell they're good. They play well. You look interesting, but I've played them for 40 minutes and I'm probably never going to play them again. And I kind of don't have that feeling about the unit because like the unit itself is fucking great.
Yeah.
It's such a good package, and there are like 5 games on it that I'm like, these are fucking great.
Yeah.
But there are, a lot of games on that where I was like, I had that same thing, no nostalgic attachment.
Yeah.
I can recognize it's a good game, but to me, it's just fine.
The same sort of deal as Skyrim, really, as well, where it, like video games age poorly a lot of the time, and if you come to them too late, other stuff does what they've done better, and so it's difficult to go back.
But I liked Crash, but didn't do anything that remarkable for me. But I think the team that worked on it, that did the remaster, did do a fantastic job of making it look current and making it feel tight. But it's fine.
When are they going to reboot the Crash film franchise?
Well,
very good.
The movie Crash by David Cronenberg and the movie Crash by Paul Haggis.
Yeah, the Crash cinematic universe. At the end of Crash, when the guy from the other Crash shows up, says, "You think there's only one Crash?"
So there's a film where
Stop saying Crash.
Well, where it's Crash Bandicoot jerking off in a speeding car. It's about to crash
while yelling the N-word.
While yelling the N-word. Crash 3. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, very good.
Feeling much better about my pick now that I've left that. Okay, did we have a name for this one, or is it just...
I think just Contrarian Award.
Maybe call it the Bevanel Award.
The Vanelli.
Yeah. So this is the Contrarian Award. I think Knox and I, we both have a couple of choices for this.
So it's things that we felt very differently to how a lot of people seem to feel about these games.
Yeah.
And I've gone one in a positive way, one in a negative.
Totally, yeah. Liked a game that everyone else hated a game that everyone else liked. Or my one, I'm going to get this out of the way. It's a game that I didn't love that everyone else is basically putting as number 2 game of the year.
Mario Odyssey.
Which is Mario Odyssey.
You motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight you about that. Next award is biggest punch.
Most battered skull.
It's fine. It's fine, really.
Yeah, I could see this coming a mile away, though, because in the lead up to it, we talked a lot about how you've never really liked the 3D platformers in general.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, it was a fine platformer, but I don't get why it's the second best game of the year in people's opinions. I've been back to it. I've tried to do the little challenges, and it's just like, I don't see the point of doing this. I'm just jumping around. Like,
I love that.
I know that's so reductive.
But this is the game that gives you the existential crisis about all games of like, what am I doing here?
I know, but there's like this. The story is so paper thin. And like with a game like Breath of the Wild, so is the story in that. But everything else in that game is just beautifully rendered and fun. And it's the 3D platformer thing.
Jumping around, paper thin story. Looking forward to a certain Egyptian-themed game cracking the top 5 for you.
I've got justifications for that. It's okay. But yeah, like I know that I'm quote-unquote wrong about this, but it's just how I feel. I think it's a fine game that everyone else loves.
I get the same sort of thing with like the more recent Tomb Raiders and stuff.
Yeah,
anytime that a game is making me hold the stick forward and stuff's happening on the screen, I'm like, what am I doing here?
Sure.
Why is this a part of it? And I think that, they're like the opposite sorts of games where Mario is all about the way it controls and how it feels to move around in that game.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't click with you, then you're going to hate it because it's all there is.
Yeah.
I said when I talked about Skyrim on the episode where I talked about it, I just that level of that type of fantasy stuff has just never clicked for me.
Yeah.
So already I'm at a disadvantage because I'm like, this just doesn't gel for me in any way. This just feels silly without there being a bit more design to it.
Hark, traveller.
If you don't get that, then there's kind of nothing there for you.
Right. And I think, like my thing with Mario is like it just kind of got successively further away from what I used to like about it.
Right.
Which is Super Mario 3.
Yeah.
Just take that, and that's what I think Mario should be.
This is kind of maybe the closest to 3 in a 3D one. I guess not. I don't know. Yeah.
Like 3D world, 3D land I really like.
Yeah.
Which is the closest to 3 that I think it's been.
But this is... we'll talk about it later, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. We can move on from this.
Yeah.
Knox, you want
to... So that was your... What's your other one? Let's do your other one first.
Okay. Wait, so what was that?
That was one you liked less than other people.
That was the one I liked less. The one I liked more was Destiny 2.
Right.
So I made a top 10. It was in my top 10.
Right.
I just really, really liked it. Like you said before, the mechanics of that game are maybe the best of any shooter that I've ever played. I really liked the style. I liked the story. I liked the kind of weird, co-op / not really co-op multiplayer stuff that there was. I didn't really go in on any of the strikes or that kind of stuff yet, but I did play a lot of just going into like the Earth area and just wait until all the fucking high-level guys would jump in from space and just fucking go rip through them and upgrade my guns and like... Yeah, I liked all that stuff. I liked all the aesthetic things that you can unlock and get and buy, and I never spent real money on anything. I just had a really, really good time with it. Just visually and mechanically, I thought it was a fucking great game.
Yeah, I'd probably same as Mario. If you're massively into just what it's doing fundamentally, then the trappings of it, but you like the trappings around it. So
I did, and
that's fucking crazy. Man.
You may as well just do your top 5 now within this category. Like,
that's no. This is my big contrarian one that I liked, but I really did like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Do you want to do yours, Tommy? I want to hear yours.
I don't really have one. Like, I kind of do, but it's kind of in my...
You fucking sheep,
it's
man.
It's kind of in my top... Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, my one of... Right, yeah, I only have one. I didn't do one for each side.
Oh, okay, right.
I just did one that I did not like at all that a lot of people loved, and you'll be with me on this, Adam Knox, Hellblade.
That is my one too.
Yeah.
Fuck that fucking game.
We were both in the same boat where it kind of came out of nowhere. Lot of early hype, like glowing reviews, and I was just so ready for a neat little game that wouldn't take too long to do, but was going to be a really interesting and fun experience. And I just hated everything that it did.
Yeah,
I found it hard to play. I found the story stuff and the way it dealt with mental illness just boring. Like I didn't feel like I learned anything more about it.
Yeah.
I just felt like dull and on the nose.
Totally. It was like ham-fisted to boring, where it was very much think almost exactly the opposite of what the majority of reviews of this game seem to be.
I got to play this game. I'm very
You'll
curious.
love it.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know.
Let's turn this off now and devote 5 hours to you playing it so that it can be on your top 5 by the end of it.
Yeah, it just really didn't pull off anything about itself as well as everyone seemed to think it did.
This is a brazen thing to say, but like people saying that it deals with mental illness so well. And I don't have any experience with that, but playing it and the way it does it, I know this is brazen of me to say. I'm like, that can't be true.
Yeah.
Like this can't be accurate.
Well, it's so similar to the cartoony versions of mental illness that have been depicted before that people say this is nothing like it.
Yeah.
Then how can this be the shift?
Yeah.
I think it's just the tone of that game is so dour.
Yeah.
It seems like it should have gravitas or something.
Totally. It's very self-important, that game, in a way that also turned me off.
You didn't like it? Interesting.
And then, the combat was shitty.
Yeah.
Play with headphones on. No thanks.
I did play with headphones on. And
I deliberately in direct defiance of being told to put headphones on. We'll see about this.
That's fucking brave, man.
That's really
Thanks, man.
brave.
Means a lot.
And
the voices in my head told me to fuck off the headphones.
The puzzles were fucking boring. The combat sucked.
The combat was terrible.
Yeah, I just really didn't like any aspect of that game.
I mean, there's a thing where you're saying, Ben, like it just didn't, it didn't, Mario Odyssey didn't gel for you, but you can understand, like, it's like, not for me, but with this, it's like, I actually don't see how this is good for anyone. I found the combat to be so clunky that I actually don't see how this got rated so high.
Completely.
I don't get it at all.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I really do want to play it to see where I fall on it.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the maybe the single biggest joy of doing the show this year was you hating it as well, because I sort of thought this is maybe just down to my experience and I don't tend to play games like this. So this is just not for me, but knowing that I had the big man backing me up was...
I fucking forced myself through the whole thing as well, just to be sure, to know, like, I had to finish it because I felt so off the mark.
Right.
But the whole thing sucks and I don't understand why anyone would like it, and if they do, I think they're wrong.
Yep, fair.
On the other side of the one I liked more than a lot of people seem to was Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
I thought that game was fucking really fun. I had a great time with the single player. It was I liked how it just jumped around between all these different things. There were a couple of crappy bits of like killing those bugs as Luke and stuff.
That was
fucking
actually tedious. This was, I think this is the only one we conferred on before we started recording. This was originally my contrarian pick that I liked.
And it moved so rapidly through that single player, and I just enjoyed what it did there. And then the multiplayer was fucking fun.
I loved the multiplayer.
Yeah.
I usually hate multiplayer. The starfighting stuff was just great. You felt like you're in a fucking TIE fighter blowing shit up.
Totally. Everything, like it. I loved how they integrated all the Star Wars stuff.
Yep. Visually, I thought it was great.
Yep.
Really, really visually nice.
Even that, I can't. Is it called arcade mode?
Yes.
Yeah. Is really fun.
Yep.
Everything you do in that game is super fucking fun.
Yeah.
I do not like the way the microtransactions are dealt with.
No.
Having to buy the card packs to get the really noticeable upgrades for different characters fucking sucks.
Like perks, not just like stat upgrades. It's like full-on perks
and
of like,
if you're, like up against one of them in the multiplayer thing, you can tell when someone's fucking spent the money.
Yep.
But that bit massively sucks. But I thought everything that wasn't that in that game was really well done and fun.
Totally. It's the best like space dogfighting game I've ever played, probably.
Love fighting those space dogs. Ah, you fucker! I constructed a whole sentence, so my way was still better.
Space dogs!
Imagine one of them. Well, Donkey hated it, so I'm going to have to say you guys are completely...
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'll rephrase my argument. No fucking this game. That's a bad donkey.
That's a really bad donkey.
Yeah.
No, I can't do it.
This game is a masterpiece.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, but it's
not a masterpiece.
No, it's good though.
It's very fun. The shooting's good. It feels good to be in Star Wars, and they've nailed that part of it.
Yep, agreed.
Speaking of feeling good, would you guys feel good?
Is this an ad?
It's an ad that Knox has booked for himself, I think.
Yeah. Joe's Pizzeria is around the corner from me.
Not for your own comedy festival show or anything like that.
Just giving a shout out.
I just wanted a free pizza, baby. And now Joe's going to be beaming the next time I walk in there, margarita in hand.
Big Joe.
Did we each have our own categories of other stuff that we wanted to put in before we get into the big top fives?
Not really. Mine kind of just fall into honourable mentions, but I know that you do have another category, Tommy.
I have an honourable mentions category of games that re-releases of which came out this year.
Yes.
So I played them. They went for sale this year on in some form or another.
Yep.
In any other year, they probably would have made my actual top 5, but it feels like a bit of a cheat to put them in because there's so much great original stuff. But these are all games that I absolutely loved this year and played the living daylights out of. Number 5, Wonder Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Early
Wonder Boy.
It's a shame they didn't license that for the opening menu.
That should have been the only element that was a remake of it, as well as it just plays that song constantly underneath the original.
Original, like, 8-bit graphics. Yeah. That was one of the first other things that came out on the Switch.
Yeah.
And so had a lot of fun with that. Around the time of Comedy Festival, kind of sitting before my show, kind of knocking off a couple of levels of that. Really fun game.
Yep.
Really
Wondering
good remake.
why the next one on your list hadn't come out yet by that point, or maybe not the next one on your list.
Next on my list, Shovel Knight.
Oh, yeah.
Again, been out for ages, but was a launch title on the Switch, which took me a while to kind of get around to getting through. But, man, such a good game. If you haven't played it, definitely worth checking out.
Yep.
Rayman Legends.
Oh, yeah, fuck.
Yeah, it came out, a few years ago now, but was re-released on the Switch this year, and just, such a great platformer.
I forgot I played this game this year. It's a fucking great game. I had a really good time with it.
Tight mechanics, and also just does, level design and creativity-wise, kind of breaks a lot of the traditions of platformers, of not just having a desert level and a beach level, like kind of heaps of different creative, interesting ideas in there.
Yeah.
Even when it does underwater levels, it does them in such a way that is unique and feels kind of fresh and different.
Totally. I reckon that's probably my platformer of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
The Ben Vernell platformer of the year.
So, heaps and heaps of fun.
Yeah.
Doom.
Oh, yeah, fuck yeah, that game's so good.
Which, great. Yep. Having a lot of fun with that on the Switch.
The Switch version being as good as it was is sick too.
That should almost be in a Stuck the Landing where, people going, oh, wow, this thing that is running on the PS4, like to get it playable. And it's
the fact that you had to download the multiplayer part separately is like a little lame.
It's not ideal.
But they got it.
It runs on that thing and it looks fine.
And it's especially fun playing it on a plane when you're doing all the gory kills and you're sitting next to like an old lady or a child. Like, really fucked up.
We're going, fucking check this shit out, Grandma.
And then my number 1, Cave Story.
Okay.
Which, obviously, been out probably the longest of anything on this list, but was re-released onto the Switch. And, got it coming back from America and played it for basically the entire flight. And, just a great love letter to old platformers and RPGs and lots of weird different stuff in there. And great music, great design. The gun upgrades and stuff work really well. One of my favourite things I've ever played. I loved it.
Yeah, great.
So the game that I thought you were going to mention that we were hoping or wishing had come out during Comedy Fest was Mario Kart 8 DX.
Yeah. I mean, I'd played that so much already that it wasn't new to me this year.
Sure, that's fair. I think it's easily the best re-release of the year, though.
Sure.
It's fucking fantastic.
These are just my personal, I played it. I played all these games for the first time this year, whereas in any other... yes, you're right. That is the re-release of the year.
In terms of a re-release, though, it's not a mate because it's the same game, basically. They added the battle mode and that was it, right?
That was my one letdown. It would have been nice to have a couple of, 2 new cups in there, just for those of us that have thrashed it on the Wii U. Not that they needed to because it's still sold.
But it's a great game.
That's the thing. It's kind of like if Skyrim came out on the Switch and you had never played it and it was your favourite game of the year. Yeah. It's kind of that situation for me.
I guess
also Pokken Tournament DX. I think that's a re-release, right?
Yeah.
But that's both DX games. Really good.
But that has a couple more characters in it and stuff like that. So that's... I'll give a shout out to Final Fantasy 12.
Oh yeah,
I didn't actually play it, but that game's fucking sick, and the re-release seemed good.
I did play it for the first time as the re-release, and it was good. Yeah,
right. I've got a couple of more honourable I've got an honourable mention for most fun I had with a multiplayer game this year.
Oh yeah,
again outside of Mario Kart. Death Squared. I just reckon it's a small game and it deserves as many shout-outs as it can get. I played it with you guys. I played it with my girlfriend a bunch. I've played it with other friends in it. We had a night at a mate's house, and it's a guaranteed crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's like takes you back to the N64 days of all of you screaming at a TV and each other. Just like, heaps of fun with some beers.
Yeah.
Well worth checking out if you haven't already and you've got
great.
some mates coming around.
Yeah, nice. I think my multiplayer game of the year is Battlefront 2. Specifically the starfighting stuff, it just played so well and it just felt like you're in the middle of a big fucking space battle. It was so much fun.
I'll give
You just did a big coming.
If I'm picking a multiplayer game of the year, there's one that's above
You do not
this.
have to, by the way.
Yeah,
I do now. You've backed me into a corner. But I'll give a mention to something that
shout out.
I liked but isn't on any lists. Splatoon 2
Yeah.
Okay,
was really fun. I really liked the salmon run mode.
Yeah.
Right.
That was really fun. And I ended up, liking the rotating map system more than I thought I would.
I'm still dipping in and out of that pretty regularly.
Yeah.
I do think it is... I understand the reasons why it's not in there, but I do think it is a great shame that there is no option to just play locally on the one console.
Yeah.
4-player split screen on that, I think, would be just, it would go back to the GoldenEye, like having a shoot. It's crazy to me that they didn't include that in.
All of the maps are small enough that 2-on-2 would be fine as well.
Yeah. Right.
So that is a bit of a shame.
I think it's a game that is pretty easy to be won over by if you played it with other people, and so it's a shame that there's no option for you to go, hey, check this out, let's have a game together, because it is a lot of fun.
If there was some control, I guess there's no control method that could only use a single Joy-Con and stuff, so it would be you need 4 controllers.
Yeah, right.
Maybe. I guess it's also just they couldn't be fucked programming AI into it, and they want the online stuff to be robust, so they want to give you an option of playing with bots offline.
It would struggle to run with 4 players on a screen.
Yeah.
Sure. So, I agree. But that game's fucking fun.
Yeah, it's great. Just an honourable mention that didn't quite crack the top 5, but had a lot of fun with it at the time. Sonic Mania, I thought was a really, really fun game.
That is a good game. Well, I've got a specific award.
Okay.
That I'll give now, I suppose.
Yes.
Is it to one of us?
The award for best lighting of the year.
Oh, okay.
Are you into lighting?
I think that lighting in video games is super fucking important.
I agree.
It is a massive thing that...
I remember we talked about this obsessively for about a month, and then haven't really brought it up again.
Well, because most games have it... They pretty much are all good these days.
Yes.
But there was one that actually kind of blew me away a little bit with how it did it, which was Breath of the Wild.
Oh, really?
The distance with which you could see your shadow when you were gliding.
Yeah.
Specifically that. And there was just... the scale of that game translated to how the lighting worked. It was all very flat and cut. But when the sun went up and down, the blood moon and everything, it all was just quite subtle, but all the shadows worked perfectly. They moved right. And it really made that world that was so big feel sort of solid.
In the DLC, when you do that first bit where you've got the one-shot kill thing,
right?
Is that... I felt like that was a lighting that was specifically tethered to that.
Yeah. There was like some weird fog or something. That
because
wasn't
I hadn't
game.
seen that before in the game, and it seemed like a deliberate thing that they had kind of put in there, and I really liked that. That kind of weird, foggy, dusky kind of look I thought was cool.
The lighting in that game was great, and just the distance on the shadows was really impressive, especially since I played it on the Wii U.
Yeah,
right.
It looked great.
If I had to call out something for lighting, it's probably Horizon Zero Dawn, and this is a game that doesn't feature in my top 5, so I might as well talk about it now. It is visually probably the most stunning, detailed, incredible video game that I've ever played.
If you're looking at a shot of it, I agree.
Yeah.
There was some weird shit of clipping and just the way that things animated, where the animation looked good, but they sort of spun around a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, some of the creature stuff, they didn't seem to be running on the same ground that you were looking at.
Yeah. And coming to it sort of back and forth between Zelda, the thing that stuck out as well is how poorly Aloy moved on surfaces.
Right.
Like the geometry of that game didn't feel right afterwards. It does look really good.
Yeah.
But it's less kind of tactile in this weird way.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I like a game that you can do a nice photo mode and take a nice screenshot.
Yeah.
Oh man, the year of the fucking photo mode too.
Yeah.
Every
the fact
goddamn
that
game.
Mario got one in it. It took me
an awesome one too.
Yeah, and I was like 6 or 7 hours into it before I remembered, oh yeah, that's because it doesn't really ever tell you that it's just in there.
Yeah. I'll also mention a game that honestly has dropped out of my top 5 the more I played it. Nier Automata, bad lighting.
Yes, bad graphics.
Yes.
It looks like a PS3 game.
Yeah, it really does.
That is also something that is not in my top 5.
Yeah. It is in my top 10. Like, it is an honorable mention, and I've loved a lot of stuff about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put in like a few days of playing it recently in preparation for this, and I'm liking it a bit less the more I play it.
It was a contender, and I had to pick between, spending more time with it or with another game that did make my top 5.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, I don't regret my decision.
Yeah.
Well, that's there's a lot of stuff I really like about that game, and no other game this year has done.
Yeah,
or kind of ever.
Yes, yeah.
But it just isn't there as a complete whole.
Yeah.
And so the nice things are good, but the bad things are tedious.
Yeah, they really are. I didn't know it was going to get tedious, and it really did.
It does a bit, yeah.
My lighting, I'd say, even though only having played the opening little bits of it, Uncharted Lost Legacy.
Oh, good.
Uncharted
good
games
call.
always manage to make you you can feel the temperature of exactly the type of day it is and exactly where you are. And so much of that is down to the lighting, like that.
That's a good
that
call.
stark, like bright, early sun and the late afternoon kind of,
Yeah, a certain game that
the nighttime stuff on the rooftops as well, like all that kind of shit. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. Oh, actually, like we said we were going to call out our best moments in gaming of the year somewhere throughout this show. I reckon that section of that game,
the India bit.
Yeah.
Well, it's all in India, but the city bit.
The city
running
bit,
on the rooftops.
The running on the rooftops. But also the very, very start of that nighttime bit where there's the soldiers kind of walking around, families running into, rooms. That might be my favourite. It was so atmospheric. And,
the rain and the neon signs and stuff. Like,
I love a good neon sign.
Same.
We should probably mention here as well that I bet as we start doing this, we'll get pretty spoilery with some of these games.
Probably.
Because we've got to kind of talk about specifics for why.
We're going to go deep, so yeah.
So yeah, if you hear the name of a game you don't want to be spoiled on,
tough luck.
Yeah.
Not much we can do.
I'll try and go through and put in time codes maybe, or cut this bit out where I say I'll put in time codes so that I don't have to bother.
I mean, it's the end of year show. You kind of expect.
Yeah.
We got to talk about stuff.
Specifically the bit in Uncharted when that jet flies over your head.
Fucking hell! Fucking hell! 12:46 p.m. on Saturday. Where's the time code? Thanks. I would have gone into suspended animation for 5 minutes if I'd known that was coming.
I loved that they bothered to make this jet for about 4 seconds of seeing it. It was cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, did you guys have any more honourable boys, or should we go into the list?
I'll just rattle through. Actually, I guess I've mentioned them all already. Destiny 2, Mario Rabbids, Nier Automata, Horizon Zero Dawn, Battlefront 2, and then Injustice 2 and Pokken Tournament DX are kind of in the mix as well.
Let's get crumpin' then.
Yeah, let's
all right.
I said that confidently. Let's get crumpin'.
Crumping. Crumping's like the dance, isn't it?
Yeah, I meant to say cronking because that's a word I've say, but who cares?
Yeah. It's your
Get the time code for this one as well, Knox.
It's like your version of Smurf. It's a word that you've decided is just an all-purpose.
But cronkin'. Because sometimes there's not great words for it, but it just sounds like it works.
Let's get cronkin'.
Yeah.
All right. So do we want to go? Well, yeah, we're going to start with
each do 5.
our 5s.
Yeah.
So do you want to kick us off, Knox, with your number 5?
My number 5. I have one honourable mention, but I'll bring it up when you inevitably bring it up, Tommy. My number 5, Injustice 2.
Okay.
Wow.
That high.
I really struggled with my number 5.
Yeah.
I hope the listeners could hear that motorbike that just went past my house, because that was fucking cool.
Yeah. He also yelled out, Injustice 2.
I really hope it picks that up.
It ended up getting way higher than I thought, just because I've been thinking about it a lot lately and playing it, and the characters they've added have been good.
Yep. The portrayals of existing DC characters. So good.
Yeah. All of the costumes and shit that you can get in that game are fun.
Yep.
The eternal single player mode that there is really good.
Yeah.
The story is fucking fun, and so like every aspect of it in the way it's constructed in a structural way is the blueprint for how a fighting game should be made.
Totally agreed.
All the modes and shit in it. I like the fighting as well.
Yeah, it's great. It's. I really liked Pokken Tournament's fighting as well. It was way more simplified though. I think Injustice 2 is my fighting game of the year for sure. It's so much fun. My fighting game of last 5 years.
It really sucked me in that way, and also has the best portrayal of DC characters that have been on a screen in any medium. It's better than the DC movies.
Yeah. Someone brought this up in our group recently, and it reminded me of it. That I'm keen to give it a go when a bit more time.
It's worth playing the first one before it.
Okay.
Just because the stories immediately follow on from one another.
Right. I didn't. So take that.
I think it gives the story in that single player mode more impact if you've played the first one.
Yeah. Right.
Because it really just throws you in.
Yeah.
But I really liked everything about that game. I can't find the only fault I can find with it is if you like fighting games heaps, this one isn't the most complex one.
Yeah.
And if you don't like fighting games at all, it's very much a fighting game.
Yeah. And isn't there's microtransactions in that as well?
Yes, that's true. But I never really got bothered by any of it because it was all for superfluous stuff.
Totally. And you really could unlock all that stuff just by playing it more as well.
And it was really fun to play more. I enjoyed that loop of doing these crazy challenges that are in the
multiverse thing was really fun.
That's it. Yeah.
And those Ninja Turtles coming in, baby.
I'm fucking stoked about them
so
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I think that's when I'll go in when the Ninja Turtles thing comes out.
There'll be some Ultimate Edition thing or whatever at some point. Wait for that and go in.
Yeah.
But it's
I wouldn't have picked that this would be on your list. I kind of, again, in the landscape of 2017, I kind of forgot it existed.
It was a massive toss up between that and I'll just say it, Mario plus Rabbids.
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll talk about more, right?
Yeah, probably.
Who's to say? Me, yes.
Thanks for clearing that up, Tommy. My number 5 is Cuphead.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I just think it had to be on there for reasons that aren't necessarily the same reasons that I would apply to choosing, say, my number 4 game. Just aesthetically, it's so original and well executed. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the music, the illustrations. I loved the gameplay. It was so precise. It was really challenging. It wasn't the longest game, but there's a lot of replay value there. And for a game to just go fucking, this is our aesthetic. It's going to just filter through every aspect of the game, and for it all to be totally my shit.
Yeah.
I just love it. There's not going to be another game like this for a while, and there hasn't been ever. So
there's something that's a perfect example of Microsoft not really fucking up as much as you were saying. Because that's their game. They bought it. They saw it. They figured it out and put it on PC where people can get it so that because people weren't buying Xboxes.
Yeah.
But the Xbox version of that is great as well. It's the same. The co-op is really fun.
Right. I haven't played the co-op.
Oh, it's great. And that game, you almost feel like when you play that it's designed for co-op.
Yeah, right.
It's like a weird translation of those bullet hell side-scrolling shooters.
Yeah.
That it does really work. I just didn't get as into it as I thought I would.
Right.
But I really respect everything about that game.
Right.
Stylistically, at least, it's very refreshing in this day and age where so many things are made by committee and end up getting fucked by some kind of overseeing kind of company that owns the other company or whatever.
EA.
Just this I don't know why they're not in the room. I don't know why I'm dancing around it.
Just say their initials. They don't have to. You don't have to spell it out.
Mr. Arts, no, that's too obvious. Electronic A.
Just to see this thing that is and was in development for so long, but it never felt. It doesn't. Not that I've played it, but I've watched gameplay videos of it and stuff. It hasn't been compromised at all. It's we want to make this super fucking hard game that is themed like a 50s cartoon.
Yeah.
And it just
30s.
Sorry, it absolutely just sticks to that all the way through, and I just love seeing stuff like that where someone's had a very unique vision that just hasn't been compromised at all. To go back to the thing of games are art, and this just feels like a great piece of art that someone went, this is exactly how it's going to be, and they got to do it.
But you know what's crazy is halfway through making that game, they show people and people are like, oh, we don't like that it's just a boss rush, and they went, okay, we're adding in some other levels then.
Yeah.
And so in a weird way, it was designed by a committee of fans of it almost.
Yeah.
And for the better. I think all those parts of it really add to it.
Yeah, they're really fun. And just as someone who has always been into cartoons and has watched a bunch of the old Merry Melodies stuff on YouTube and was always into Yeah, Betty Boop stuff, the early Disney, and
You're a booper?
I'm not really a boop head. I'm not a booper.
Man, I'm with Booper.
I'm a minivan private. But yeah, just fucking for the style to be so strong and the gameplay to be there as well. It's just like they fucking pulled it off.
It reminds me a little bit of, do you remember that game on the SNES, Mickey Mania? Where it was all like each level was like you're in an old Mickey Mouse cartoon.
Yes.
Right.
So there's a level where you're like you're on the boat of Steamboat Willie and like it kind of that sort of thing is really cool.
Totally. That was a game where I never got to play it, I don't think, but I just got to watch friends play it and be like, I wish I had this game.
Such a cool idea for a game.
That aesthetic in Cuphead doesn't wear off as well. Like it keeps being inventive with what they're doing, and so like perfectly done the whole way throughout.
It's that thing that's kind of happened over the past couple of decades of people getting an old style and then reinventing it using modern techniques or just like a modern perspective.
Yeah.
And they do it really well.
But I think what's so interesting about the look of it is sometimes like stuff comes out where it's like, oh, we're sort of trying to do this. And it's not. It's their version of what they think it is or what they think. Like you can kind of tell it's like, no, this is but you could take a shot of that in isolation and go, this is from an actual 30s cartoon, and you'd buy it.
Totally.
It doesn't feel like there's not little things that have snuck in design-wise. To me, it looks 100% pure of that time. They haven't they haven't been tempted to kind of go, he's crumping.
Good word.
Or cronking.
Yeah, Cronkhead. Great game. Great. I liked what you said just before about most things that are on my list are on there for different reasons.
Right.
Like it's all the games that I think are the best, but like for different. Yeah, I think they're the best for different reasons.
Mine are just on my list because they're objectively the best ones, and you couldn't argue about this list in any way.
Like, well, we're all different.
Interesting.
Well, we've all got different approaches.
Oh yeah, some people are more wrong than others, absolutely. But
my number 5 is Arms, and this is one that would have been on my contrarian thing.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't think people hate this. I just think most people went, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But this is a game that, in terms of just purely the amount of time I kept coming back to it,
right?
Like it just had to be on there. There's games that are made better for sure. Like it does have its faults, but they continued updating it throughout the year, and every time they added something to it, I would turn it on to just kind of see what they'd added, and then I would find myself playing it for hours at a time for like a full week. Like I totally understand that it didn't click with a lot of people, but for me it did, and like I got it in the middle of a holiday, and it's very tied to like playing it on planes, like traveling around, and I like the online stuff I find really fun. The design is extremely my shit. I think they've now added a lot of stuff that has made it so much better that arguably should have just been there from the beginning.
Right.
But they just brought out a content update this week that they've said is the last content update. So they've, over the course of time, they've added 5 characters and stages and a bunch of arms and a badge mode and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, it just is pure fun. I love just turning it on and playing it for 15 minutes and having a few rounds. It just really clicked with me, and
the multiplayer like lobby in that is one of the best I've seen, with your little circle of your head floating around and then bashing into other things. It's changing up what events you're doing in that. I like that. I agree. I remember you saying at the time that the volleyball and everything felt a bit forced in the single player, and I agree with that, but it's quite fun as a little break in the multiplayer section.
I disagree.
The volleyball is weaker than the fighting in that game.
Yeah.
I honestly think that those things stopped me getting into the game.
Right.
They just totally broke the momentum and the rhythm of what was going on, and I was like, I don't like this so much that I'm going to stop playing.
It's weird that you can't turn them off as well.
Yeah.
Like it does feel like the Tekken games have always had a little side game.
Yeah.
And if they jammed that in the middle of doing an arcade mode thing, it would be weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you played it a lot more like 2 people punching at a screen standing in the same room than I did at all.
Me?
Yeah.
With the Joy-Con?
Yeah.
No, I kind of went off that pretty quick.
I did but
I feel like they did too. I feel like all these late content updates, I think they released it thinking this is going to be Wii boxing, which it very quickly wasn't. And I think the reason the content updates have come so much later in the year is them just realizing, let's just treat this as a unique, fun fighting game. They never talk about the Joy-Con stuff with it anymore.
Yeah. Right.
And I reckon when they do a sequel, you'll get there'll be a story mode. There'll be an actual story mode in the single player. There'll be more they'll treat it like a more robust kind of online single player game rather than just. I think they thought the real joy of it was going to be people in the same room using the Joy-Con, and it is a fun novelty, but they were really putting all their eggs in that basket, and it's just not.
They don't control well enough. You really have to feel like you're in control of what you're doing with that game. Like it's pretty specific movements, and the Joy-Cons didn't do it for me.
It works well for showing it to a friend who, if you've played it a bunch and you really know what you're doing, if you both use the Joy-Con, it kind of automatically handicaps you, and it makes it easy for them to kind of work out what's going on. That's kind of the genius of it. But it just connected with me, and I just for the amount of times I kept coming back to it throughout the year and getting sucked into it again, it kind of did occupy my whole year. So,
and that was the first sort of big Switch only game, I guess.
Yeah.
It's good. It's probably the 19th best game of the year. Anyway,
on your
guys,
master
I'm not going to
list.
shit on your choices, all right?
I intend to do it even with my ones.
All right, so number 4.
Cool. Let's do a whip around a 4. Well, my number 4 is Super Mario Odyssey.
Nice.
In a number 4.
What a shit game.
Hey, I'll listen to what you have to say.
No, I'll listen to what you guys have to say. Because I don't have much to add.
That game controls perfectly to me, other than the bits of motion control that you need to do. I think they're just a bit annoying that they can't be mapped to buttons.
Oh, yeah, the little bits. Yeah, there are.
There's only a couple that you need to do of like spinning the hat in a circle around yourself is useful. And there was one other. Like sometimes when you're capturing something, you have to do a flip with it.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And that's a bit annoying.
But it wouldn't be a Nintendo game if there wasn't at least one thing in there where you went, why is this not optional?
It's bizarre that they persisted with the motion control stuff. Because I was just thinking, like, on a very low level of fucked it, Nintendo's like really heavy investment in HD rumble, motion control. It just nothing has really needed it.
Like 1-2 Switch could just be on that fucked it
remember
list.
that? Yeah, totally. It
but
should
it's
be,
telling that it's like it's not even worthy of being on the fucked it.
I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah.
The fact that was I think a full price game as well.
And a launch game. Yeah.
That was fucking silly, actually. But anyway, Mario Odyssey, all of the levels I thought were really fun. There wasn't any that stuck out to me as like, oh, this one's a bit boring. They were just all... Like, there are a couple that they made shorter than the others as well, like which was the right decision.
Right.
Every little inventive thing that you're asked to do during that game is... just this brief moment of like, here's this thing. Okay, you're done. Move on.
Yeah.
It's like this really fun playground where you've got this fun guy showing you through all of it. Like, okay, swing on this. Yay. It's this obstacle course that you're going through with like this really well-designed, beautiful graphics.
I've been meaning to say this when we've talked about it before, but Laura Dale, who's a UK games journalist, she was talking about having played it early, like before it had come out, and like was on Twitter going, my review's coming out tomorrow, I've had it for a week, no spoilers, but I like it. And someone said, how does it that was the big thing people were asking before it came out, was how does it compare to Breath of the Wild?
Right.
And she said, which I think is a great way of summing it up, Breath of the Wild is the sandbox and Mario Odyssey is the toy box.
Yeah.
Where Zelda is just infinite and it's like, here's this big space, and then Mario Odyssey is more contained, but it's like, here's 80 different things you can do in this little box.
Totally.
And,
they're totally different games with the same sort of idea of, okay, make it bigger and freer applied to them.
Do what you want. Yeah. Because you can very easily, like, in that game, even though it's not, the worlds aren't as big as Breath of the Wild, like, I frequently turn it on going, oh, I'll just go and try and get some moons, and I just end up fucking running around and doing flips and jumping up walls and stuff.
It's just fun to move around in that game. And all of the challenges are just designed to give you excuses to move in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, and like you have a little bit more creativity with how you do it than in a lot of older Mario games.
Yeah.
Where in a lot of them it was like, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
See if you can pull it off. But this, it gives you a bit of like, oh, maybe I could go around this way and get up that way. Like the little races and stuff.
Yeah.
You've got some options with what to do. I thought the presentation of it was so fucking like just good across the board.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
These really creative levels, these beautiful graphics. The music for the most part was great. Some of it a little forgettable, which was maybe a bit disappointing, but for the most part awesome. I like the structure of it having this really kind of tight single player like campaign or whatever you want to call it, and then opening up to like, okay, now go do all this stuff. That really worked for me. It was challenging when it needed to be. It was kind of a little easier than it maybe could have been at some points, but just still just such a sense of fun going through that whole thing.
The back end of it, once you're into the post-credit stuff, some of that is brutal.
It kicks your ass, and I love that from Mario games like that. It really makes you test out what all the new moves are in it. The throw the hat, dive on it stuff is really fun. The capturing mechanic works really well and isn't overused.
For the small things that they kind of changed about it, like not having lives and being able to just fall from as great a height as you want and not lose any life or die. Like such small things, but just do change the fundamentals of a Mario game in such impressive ways that make it so fun.
This perfect mix of the nostalgia bits, but just doing its own new thing too. All the costumes and stuff I ended up really finding fun to collect the coins for them and buy them.
I loved unlocking all that, and especially the ones that you unlock after the credits, like these great little like bits of fan service. Dressing him up as a king is so good.
It's sick. Like just having him be a dumb clown running around is stupid and fun. Just that whole thing has a sense of fun to it, and every single design element is just trying to get you to have fun with it.
I wrestled with it a lot because it wasn't... I feel like I had been so hyped for it and built up in my head exactly what I wanted it to be. And it again, my only complaint of it is that I love it all so much that I just wish there was more of it. I devoured all the stuff that was pre-released, and I kind of wish I had stepped back from it a bit because I just wanted to be surprised by it a bit more, but that's not a fault of the game. That's a fault of how much I consumed in the lead up to it.
I will say maybe some of that comes from a lot of the moons just being like, oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Like they're all meant to be very quick and bite-sized little things, but some of them it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I jumped on a bush and there was a moon.
Totally. Yeah. I threw a shoe at a bush.
Yeah.
Well, if we're talking our favourite moments of a game of the year, this has mine. The festival in New Donk City.
That's pretty good.
That's one of just... It's so short, but it's just one of my favourite things I've ever done in a game. Totally caught me by surprise and just had the biggest smile on my face for the whole thing, which to me is like, what a game should be. Just fun and joyous. And
the two bits where there's the songs with lyrics in that game at the end as well. When, again, spoilers, when you're Bowser and you're beating the shit out of all that stuff. And there's that dumb song that sounds like it's from a Sonic the Hedgehog game.
Yeah.
I thought that was so stupid and different to what Mario been. And like, this year reminded me of Nintendo being happy to fuck with their shit.
Yes.
And just like try new stuff with it. And that is when they're good.
Well, we didn't. Let's talk about the ending because I thought we didn't talk about it at the time. But the ending is the moment where Bowser's unconscious and you realize you can capture him. And it comes as such a surprise, but at the same time, it's like, of course, this is what the end of it is. And just that whole thing of then you go into the 2D bit with him, like just such a great ending and such a different ending to a Mario game
and then getting that Mushroom Kingdom afterwards and running around there.
That's very
every
cool.
time you get a moon, the moons are stars, and it does whatever the Mario 64 noise is.
That, again, my one little disappointment in that bit was when you get the Super Mario 64 costume and you need it to go into a special room, and then it's just a thing where you have to pick the right order of the boxes.
Right. Yeah, the little ghost.
Yeah.
And it's from 64, like that courtyard.
But I kind of thought the fact that you're in this new costume, a 64 themed costume, meant, this is going to be like a level from Mario 64.
Yeah,
again, it's just it being a victim of itself and the expectations that it creates. Like, it's not necessarily bad, but I was sort of like, I built up like, oh, fuck, yes, there's going to be like a whole level in here.
Well, and I'd already seen the Mushroom Kingdom earlier in the game as well, because in that luncheon one, there's the painting.
Yeah,
where you
get into the painting.
It's kind of been a little ruin the surprise of that. And then there's nothing that's a surprise after that's as good.
Yeah.
Like the new levels you get are just other parts of the moon and are just like ways for you to get to all these.
Well, I'm trying to make my way through the darker side of the moon, which is really punishing. Yeah. Like really, really
hard. So is that the big long level? Is that
yeah. And there's no save points. You die and you go straight back to the start, and it brings in a little bit of everything, which just feels like a perfect final challenge where it's just all these little bits coming back in.
It's so good.
And all and different music from the different kingdoms plays throughout the course of the level. Great stuff. Really great stuff all around.
It's a very good game.
Yeah.
What was your number 4 that was nowhere near Mario?
It was Uncharted: The Lost Legacy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's an Uncharted game, and I fucking love the Uncharted games. It was, I think, like the right length for the amount of story it had to work with. Visually, it was incredible. It was really fun. I liked the characters. There's not much more to say about it. Like, I already talked about the visuals and the kind of, the detail and the atmosphere that it created. But, and I've already talked about Uncharted 4 on this podcast before. Like, it's that, but more with different characters.
Yeah. I was very surprised by how high the quality was. That, honestly.
Yeah.
The fact that it started out as what seemed like it was going to be a 2 or 3 hour DLC and ballooned into this thing with like a new mechanic for the Uncharted games at that open world bit, which was really fun.
Yeah, I really liked that. And it was challenging. It
had all the set pieces and shit.
It totally did.
Probably the best villain from an Uncharted game too.
And the best kind of like interaction between the villain and the hero characters. It was genuinely tense and interesting stuff. And the setting is great. Like India is beautiful, and the game was beautiful. So yeah.
And just a refreshing take too to have different characters in there. Like
totally
you'd be playing as a different character. Not this
I feel
wise ass old man following you around,
but then
saying that he's sweating like a whore in church.
When Sam Drake shows up again, though, you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that we all kind of agreed. Like Uncharted 4 was great, but we were kind of sick of the Nate character. The way that it was kind of it had become kind of flat and predictable and just a stereotype.
And they sort of knew it as well. Like by 4, they had some things in there. It's like a fucking Gen cunt.
Yeah,
totally.
Like his wife was just like, dude.
Yeah.
There's been a trilogy. A 4th doesn't make sense. Don't do a 4th.
It's self-indulgent. You're being self-indulgent.
Mass Effect Andromeda. Fuck you.
Yeah.
But
this having a fresh take on it on a game that's mechanics are so fun. It was great. I really liked it.
Yeah, it makes me hopeful for the inevitable other studio that takes on Uncharted to do side stories and just different things with that tone.
Not everything has to be this, 15-hour. Just
and
these
Nathan
shorter.
Drake isn't Uncharted. It can be other stuff. It's the adventurous attitude.
Yeah.
Climbing those big fucking statues was one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
That's been in any of those. Yeah, it measures up to all of the other games in that series.
Totally.
Agreed.
My number 4, Persona 5.
Oh,
number 4.
Baby.
Justify.
Sure. I played this. I played a little bit of it earlier in the year, and I kind of wrote out, what I thought should be on my list, and I had some pretty obvious ones, and then I had a gap where I was like, okay, it feels like there's some big contenders in here that I've only, devoted a little bit of time to. So I kind of spent the last couple of weeks kind of trying to catch up on stuff. And I kept coming back to feeling like this was the one to go in and devote time to, because even though I hadn't played that much of it, just everything that I'd seen about it, like the music and the presentation and everything about it, I just thought, this is the one that I should go back and devote a bit of time to. And so I've been playing it quite a bit this week. I'm still very early on in it, admittedly. Like, it's pretty outrageous to put a game on your top 5 of the year that is, I've not... Everything else on my list I've completed.
Yeah.
But I'm just confident enough in it. I think it is undeniably one of the games of the year. And even in this amount of time I've played it, I'm having some of the most fun I've had with anything in the year.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. It's not my understanding that it dips at any point. So yeah, I just think it's such a, like, I was playing Xenoblade for a bit, and I can't get on with the combat in that. And this does a lot of the same, like the characters and the world and the story are fascinating and interesting to me, and well designed and well executed. And I like the combat. Like, I like this style of turn-based combat. Like, it doesn't feel like even though it throws a lot of stuff at you, it doesn't feel like... The thing with Xenoblade, it feels like you need to know everything that's going on, or you're just not going to be able to progress. You're just not going to be able to do anything.
Sure, yep.
This throws a lot of stuff at you, and it feels like there's bits that you can... And I could be wrong because I am early on in it. It feels like there's bits that you could kind of comfortably leave behind, but if you take the time to look into them and work out how they work, you're going to get better at it.
I think that's very...
You're not going to be able to not
fair.
progress because you don't know them. You're actually going to have a better time if you do take the time.
Totally.
There's some other things that's like, I don't get this, and now I'm just fucked and I can't go through.
I think the difference is that Xenoblade seems like it's 50 shallow mechanics being thrown at you all the time.
Yes.
Persona 5 has 5 really deep ones.
Yeah.
It's a very simple to understand thing, hard to master type thing.
Yeah.
Or not even hard to master, just it expands as it goes on in logical ways that you intuit rather than being told
or even
them.
you maybe you do hit a difficulty spike and you're like, oh, okay, maybe this is the time to look into this. And so you do, and it's justified, and it's motivated, and it makes sense to you.
Completely. There's never a point where you're confused by the combat. You're just sometimes ill-prepared for something because you haven't... But in a good way.
Like I'm a kind of... I didn't... It's like it's not like I muddled through, but I just kind of went through without really giving it much of a second thought until, I got to a point where there was a boss that I just couldn't beat. I tried like 5 or 6 times, and I was like, oh, and this is so fucking obvious. Like, this is stupid. It's like, that's right, there's elemental weaknesses and strengths. What is it weak to? What am I strong with? Or what can I equip to become strong at to beat this boss?
And that becomes the main mechanic of the game, is basically a rock, paper, scissors thing of I want to have these ready at any time.
And the way to sometimes improve those or even overpower yourself is to get into the persona, what is it, like the guillotine thing?
Oh, yeah, the combining.
Yeah, where you're combining and
what
you're
is the
leveling
term
up.
for it?
Oh, it's
executing.
Is it? Yeah. Is it
It's executing.
Yeah.
I guess so, yeah. You meld them together or whatever. And
Because I often, my problem with turn-based stuff sometimes is I find it, the repetition of it becomes so grinding to me where you're in these things where you're just constantly sort of doing the same thing again and again, but all of the menu selections and the music and the sound effects and just the overall presentation of this is so good and strong that I don't mind doing it again and
Completely.
again. Like I look forward to it instead of being like, this again.
It goes a hell of a long way to it, and the progression with which it ramps up throughout the course of that game is just enough to keep you always, there's something new that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And the fact that, that turn-based combat, you can turn it into a rush mode where you're just constantly attacking. You can set up your companions to attack in a certain way or defend in a certain way. You can constantly control everyone the whole time. It gives you every option.
And just like even story-wise and world-wise, like it kind of has these like touchstones, a lot of which are things from, that I remember from growing up. Like there's elements, like it is very kind of like Pokemon-y in the sense that you're collecting all these different kind of things and they're evolving and leveling up and the style of turn-based combat is pretty similar. There's kind of elements of like the Power Rangers in there in terms of it being these like school students and high school that are these like kind of fantastic heroes and stuff. But it manages to feel nostalgic without just being deliberately nostalgic and kind of absolutely like turn all those kind of outside influences into completely its own thing.
Yeah, I remember
agree with all of that.
Before we even played it, I think, Knox, the thing that we kind of heard was like Japanese Buffy.
And
it's Japanese Buffy, but not funny, but it deals with genuine...
got little points that are kind of funny.
I don't really find it... I find it like, it's fun, it's lighthearted.
It's lighthearted, not funny, but lighthearted.
I genuinely think it deals with serious emotional issues better than Buffy did. Better than most things. Like, it's so interesting the way it deals with stuff.
It's this really good sort of like coming of age story where it's the whole theme is dealing with adults being fucked and dealing with the world that you're going into. Like, people are cruel to each other here. And becoming empowered to deal with that.
And it's this weird case of having such a literal representation of that like division or progression. But it's somehow working much better than it just being a straightforward
and
story.
Never feels on the nose or anything. Like it's so exaggerated and so like this crazy version of these vices that these characters have.
That's what's nuts about it is you go into these palaces and it's this kind of very over the top world and it doesn't in any way then when you're back in the real world and this real stuff is happening, it doesn't feel like it's compromised the gravity of that at all.
No.
Bizarrely enough.
It's this. It's a perfect tone between them, and it doesn't lose steam really for 100 and fucking something hours. Which is insane. It's kind of structured like TV series where there's a sort of big villain every now and again. And the way it keeps it up, when it starts to become routine, it'll do some big flip. It'll do a turn on that thing.
Totally.
I think for me, like the early bit that I'd played of it, I was just before I tapped out for a couple of months just before the bit where you kind of really work out, okay, so this is what the pattern of the game is.
Right.
And I think if I had persevered back then, I would have sunk way more time into it in the back end of the year. And yeah, I mean, if this had come out on the Switch when it did, Like, I absolutely would have finished it by now. Like, it just would be... I can see this being the greatest game to just get on a plane, turn it on, and then you're at your destination before you know it.
Completely.
This would be so easy to just drain hours into.
It's that if your destination is 4 a.m.
yeah.
Well,
I find it hard to sink too much time into something on a cat. Like, I just get very aware of like, okay, I've been doing this for an hour now. Time to go
But
do
Persona 5 really sucks you into
Totally.
that thing because it just keeps moving. There's not really any flat points of that game.
And it often you turn it on and then you're into a story bit where, and you know, a lot of it is you're just kind of clicking through text especially in those first few hours, and that was kind of maybe early on a slight issue where I was like, is this fun? I'm not doing anything.
It doesn't really come bursting out of the gate or anything.
It's literally like
in.
for the time I'm in, I'm still basically in a tutorial.
The first sort of 10 to 15 hours is that. But then like...
And I'm only 50 hours in, I will say, or 51 or something.
Right, and that's halfway, which is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
It's too long. It's too long, but it doesn't ever feel too long.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy to have this play out over another 3 months.
Yeah.
Like I'm loving the game, of course.
My favorite
I am.
Probably my favorite soundtrack of the year.
Just every aspect of the presentation. The voice acting is really great.
Rare, well, we were saying this before, a rare thing where I've got no desire to turn the Japanese voice acting on. The people they've chosen for the English are just some of the best English dubs of anything,
They
I
all
think.
nail it. All of the characters are really interesting that it brings in. You'd got to like all of them or dislike them if that's the direction it goes in.
Yep.
It's inventive the whole way throughout, but still just with the same basic stuff. Like it really just knows what it is and pulls it off really, really well.
Yeah, as someone who's been to like the city it's set in, it is perfectly realized.
Yeah.
And it's downscaled, but the atmosphere and the feeling is just spot on.
Yeah.
And absolutely spot on.
All the bits of just the people having these conversations and these kind of side stories that evolve as the game goes on is really cool.
Yep.
It's maybe the most well presented game I've ever played.
Totally.
Where the menus are fucking cool.
Yes,
that's
totally.
insane.
The sound effects when you hit yes on something, or even when you hit back.
Yeah.
There's that sound.
Yeah, it has that kind of eccentric, idiosyncratic Japanese style, and also style to the game where sometimes like a character will pop up or an element will be part of the game that you never understand. There's certain characters or mechanics in the game that I'm like, I don't get why this is in the game, but it looks cool and it sounds cool and I'm happy it's there.
Yeah.
And a lot of that gets resolved at some point. Like when I finished it, I wasn't left confused.
Right.
And it goes in some fucking ridiculous directions that are really cool.
Yeah.
And that like the ending sort of few hours of that game, the ending 20 hours of that game are really fucking satisfying and well done.
Right.
Yeah,
There's a
right.
couple of bits of it where it's like, okay, you didn't need to have that shot of her butt and that sort of
yes.
stuff.
Oh, absolutely there is that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a beach scene that is like, this is so Japanese.
Yeah.
There's a bit where you're confronting the teacher who's like fucked, the gym teacher, and the girl who has just joined your party is like chewing him out, going, you know, you can't just treat women as sex objects. Minutes later, she's in a skimpy leather outfit, and one of the other characters basically goes,
But then also,
like, don't lecture me about this and then do that.
But then also that dumb male character is meant to be seen as a dumb lech.
Yeah.
Like he also is like, he's meant to look like a dickhead.
Yeah.
And by the end of that game, everything has panned. There's I won't go into specifics because neither of you have finished it. But anyone out there, I wouldn't give a fuck. I don't want to. I started looking at an imaginary fourth person in the room. Yeah, it's every element of that game is very well done.
Yeah,
the
it doesn't
super
overstay its welcome.
arcadey kind of nature of the turn-based combat, where as you're doing stuff like, people in your party are all just kind of yelling shit out. Like they've all got their little stuff that gets repeated that sometimes can be quite annoying, but in this it's just very charming. Wow, Panther, you're so gorgeous.
It gets repeated a fucking lot though.
Yeah.
There's one thing that a lot of the enemies start saying of like, come at me, clown shoes.
Fuck.
And I don't know if clown shoes is some crazy insult in Japan, but anyway. He's got pointy shoes, I guess.
Just someone with the localization having a bit of fun.
Yeah, you do hear those things a lot, but it didn't never really
matter.
The enemy design and the design in general visually is fucking great.
Yeah.
The variety, the different kinds of palaces that you get into, and the way that they influence the enemy types, just... It's so good.
Yeah. I've spoken to a couple of people this week who are in the same boat as me. Like, we're a few hours in and liking it, but hadn't quite reached that point where it clicks. And it really, to anyone, if you're listening and you're in that position, it is worth devoting a couple more hours to just get into that point where
it's
you
such
really
a crazy,
work out exactly what it is.
It's such a big ask to be like, play this for 15 hours before you make your mind up.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean, with me, I was still spending a lot of time just clicking through text and going, I'm just basically watching a movie here, and then I just realized, well, I fucking like the movie. Like, even if I'm not playing it, I like the story and
totally.
all
That's
the
the thing.
acting and everything. So I'm fine. I'll just sit here and spend an hour at a time watching a thing. That's all.
I could hypothetically see somebody not being into this story, which that's probably the one way that I could, but it doesn't mean it's bad. A lot of people don't like Raging Bull.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Really? A lot of people don't like Raging Bull?
I don't know if a lot of people do, but there's someone out there,
They're
probably
out there.
Jake LaMotta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to our number 3s.
Number 3, look at me. It is fun to rhyme.
We are. We're looking at you.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is what I think for this.
Yeah, okay. I guess I can see how it has to slot in there.
I like these next 3 are basically in the order of the amount of time I played them.
Right.
And this one, it's caught me
It's going to come close in the top 2.
Yeah.
Gonna come
the top
very
2
close.
are both the biggest games I've played in years, and I've played them for a similar amount of time.
Right.
Anyway,
I hope people can hear the guy mowing his lawn outside my house who yelled out, PlayerUnknown's Battleground.
I wonder if they can hear him mowing his lawn. Hey, if you can, it's a cool little soundtrack.
Yeah.
I hope we don't get copyright claimed.
The inventor of the lawnmower comes after us.
Yeah. Jim.
Oh, it would be like cows. Right? Cows invented mowing lawns. PlayerUnknown's Battleground, it's the most fun I've had with a multiplayer game in years. It's not a new thing, but I think it's just one of those cases where it's done that thing the best.
Right.
Or in the most sort of approachable way. So it
I even think top line, like, hey, it's the movie Battle Royale, but you get to play it, isn't something that I had really heard of before.
It'd been just sort of mods for other things and stuff.
And so even just that of like, this is what that game is. Instantly, it's like, fuck, that sounds great.
100 people on an island, massive island.
Yep.
Bunch of cool guns. You shoot at each other.
Yeah.
That's the game.
That's it.
That enough for you?
Yeah. 30 million people can't be wrong.
Man, it's like a phenomenon now.
Yeah.
And
it's where society is heading in the real world as well, I'm sure.
That's what it is. It's like a training sim. People just getting ready for the inevitable.
The island won't be as green and lovely as that one, but and maybe the island is like the highest peak of America.
Yeah,
but the water has risen that high, and that's why we're fighting for the last bit of land that's left.
Yeah, it's the peak of Mount Everest. It's only
the highest part of America.
Well, I was literally high roading you. I was going to the actually highest spot in the world.
But yeah, it's the new stuff they've just added of like being. It sounds so stupid, but being able to like vault over fences and stuff.
Yeah,
and the desert map are both really. They haven't been out for a very long time.
Yeah,
but they keep adding stuff in the right sort of way. It has microtransactions in the right way of like, this is all superfluous stuff. Who gives a shit?
Right.
It's just
making your gun purple and stuff.
It's a pure play this for half an hour, you'll get something out of a game.
Yeah, nice.
The feeling of winning that game is ridiculous because you beat 100 or 99 people,
right?
Technically, and the shooting feels good, the moving feels good, the tension of that game is fucking insane. You really feel hunted, or if you're doing well, like you're a fucking predator.
Yeah,
it's incredible. The little minutiae.
Not a good year to feel like a predator, I don't think,
mate. I'm gonna flip my lid. The sort of way that the shifting thing of the tactics in that game of how they've changed, and so like, so people will close the doors and hide behind this, so now people know that, so you do the opposite thing, and that kind of meta of it, switching meta, I barely know it has been a really interesting, like, fun thing that has existed in a lot of other games that I've just not gotten into, like with this game though.
Yeah, right.
It feels like Counter-Strikey a little bit, but with 100 people.
Yeah,
it's fucking great.
Awesome.
That game is very fun, and everyone should give it a try if there's ever some way of being able to. For
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Great.
Nice.
Switch version it would not run on the Switch.
Imagine playing that in VR. Like that'd be just so intense.
Yeah, it's like it's a very adrenaline releasing game,
right?
Anyway, when it's going, I can't imagine being in VR and because the first person mode of that, there are specific first person servers and you can do it like that, but it's more fun to be in the third person. You just get that bit of extra view and there's something about it that feels like you're more in it.
Yeah.
But it's still fun either way.
Nice.
I fucking really like that game.
Cool. Assassin's Creed Origins is my number 3.
Nice.
It's a massive return to form for the series. It is, along with Horizon Zero Dawn, probably the best looking game in terms of this is what the world could look like kind of thing. It's not stylized. It's just like fucking... This is ancient Egypt.
Yep.
The river, the Nile, like looks beautiful with the sun setting over. You know, the crocodiles are fucking great. There's hippos. There's like
I love that your justification of why this game
giraffes,
should be in there is just like hippos are cool. The Nile's nice.
There's antelopes. There's camels. But no, it is really stunningly visually realized. Like it's just, it cannot be emphasized how incredible the game looks.
I've done some reading about like how accurate it is to ancient Egypt too, and that's very cool.
Well, that's the thing. That was the other thing they had was the education mode. So it's like it has to be accurate.
Man, any game with an education mode,
hey,
that's the one that I'm putting on my list.
You're surprised it's on mine?
Assassin's teaches typing.
KILL.
But yeah, like the combat's really fun and more challenging than it used to be. The story is actually kind of getting better as it's going along. It's not as bland and shitty and shallow as I thought. And like I mentioned, I think when I reviewed it, the side quest stuff is the most interesting the series has ever been.
Right.
It's actually got personality. It's got interesting stuff going on and kind of funny stuff as well. But yeah, just like the recreation of ancient Egypt is so detailed and interesting, but not in a flat like, oh, here's just what it looks like way. In a stylish and visually interesting way as well. Yeah, I think it's really good, and I've always loved the franchise, and it's like the best one in it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a big part of it. It's something that you have fondness for, being good again. Like, yeah.
And it is, and it introduces some of the hunting and crafting mechanics that have been in the Far Cry series that I've really liked. Just that it has that element of like, yeah, you can like have a giant eagle friend fly around, spot some animals. You can crouch. You can move through the the long grass along the river.
Finally, a game where you can crouch.
I mean, you were talking about vaulting over fences before.
That's true, and it is a very exciting ability.
But yeah, introducing that kind of thing that the Assassin's Creed games haven't had in this way of like, I'm just going to drop into this region and I'm going to walk around for a while, and maybe some of that's hunting, maybe some of that's just exploring. But it's not just climbing to the top of a building and jumping off. It's this other stuff that's kind of more fun and a bit slower paced and more, it's just kind of enjoyable in a relaxing way as well as a running around stabbing people way.
Great.
So, yeah. That's why it's my number 3.
I definitely like that game more than I have any Assassin's Creed in a long time. It still has a couple of the Assassin's Creed-y sort of, not problems, just stuff that...
Just staples that...
that I'm maybe just not... open world game even.
Right.
Staples that, I sometimes just find myself going, oh, I've got to walk this whole fucking way.
Well, that's what I like about it, and what I like about this kind of game. So it just fucking gets me right.
And it does that better.
G-spot.
GameSpot.
Yeah, exactly.
GameSpot.com.
Yeah,
but
give them a shout out.
It definitely is like you say, a return to form and. Good.
I know it's not subjective. It's not objectively the third best game of the year, but it is my third favorite.
And I can totally understand why. For the first time in a few years with Assassin's Creed, since like 2-ish Brotherhood.
Probably, yeah. Yes, totally, yeah.
4 maybe.
Okay, my number 3 is Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Wow,
It's a fucking awesome game.
Yeah.
Had no expectation for it whatsoever. Well, had negative expectation for it.
Yeah.
And just loved it. A type of combat game that I'd not played before that, as it turns out, I really, really enjoy. Just tightly designed. Rare for a Mario thing to be given over to someone else and for them to clearly have so much just kind of love for the source material.
And for Nintendo to be like, yeah, put your dumb little fucking cartoon boys in it too.
Yeah. Crazy that it exists, crazier that it worked. This was, it was kind of in the colder months when it came out, so I spent a lot of time sitting up until 3 a.m. in bed playing this. Went through the whole campaign. The final ending battles I thought were cool. Threw some little surprises in there that were kind of nifty, and a lot of replayability in terms of this. There's these little challenges that you can go back and do, some of which get just brutally difficult in terms of the terms that you have to complete the round within.
Yeah. Some of those do feel like there's a right way to do it, and if you don't figure it out, you're not going to get it done.
Totally, but I think that's cool. Like it's like a little puzzle. Yeah,
it's like it turns it into a puzzle game. Exactly.
A lot of, and they've added something that we were calling for when it first came out, just a versus battle mode that you can just play locally, which I think is great. That's finally in there.
Is that behind? Do you have to buy the DLC for that, like the season pass or whatever?
I think that might be free.
Right.
I think it might. I think that might be a free update.
That's cool. If it is.
I think so. I could be wrong. I haven't tried it out yet, but a lot of. Just everything about it, there was way more to it than I thought. Like even when, we started seeing stuff about it and we all thought this actually looks like it could be good.
Yeah.
It's not a super long game, but there is, if you're a completionist, there is definitely, like, I have the desire to go back through and 3-star everything and do all the challenges and unlock all the stuff and get more money to get the different guns and everything.
Out of a possible 3 stars, by the way. That just sounded like you were like, I want to go through and do a mediocre job.
Oh, yeah. 3 out of 10, that'll do me. Just a great surprise, great fun.
The music's really great in that game.
The music's awesome. Just, really brimming with personality and
There's some like sort of weird kind of buggy graphical stuff in it, weirdly, like during the cutscenes especially, people like jump around a weird amount.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like
also the humor's quite bad.
Yeah, the writing is pretty awful.
Yeah.
But it's not a huge deal.
No, and I really liked it. I'm about halfway through it, I think, and like great work with the visuals. Like it just gave a little bit extra texture to that kind of Nintendo style, and
it made me weirdly like the Rabbids as well.
Totally.
I think they're kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm still not there, but
I liked all the little bit, like I loved how intricately all the worlds were designed and all the little bits of the rabbits sitting on a gear and like wow, and you're like, look at that little cunt.
Yeah, those bits where you're walking around, it's like it's almost like those little. I said this at the time. Those little theme park rides, like the It's a Small World kind of thing, where you can go and look and it's like, oh, there's one over there doing something, and there's a bit of dialogue and
there's like a bit of variety in the battles, but even just the kill everyone here stuff is great.
Yeah, it's really fun.
But the get towed to the goal, like the mixing up of that. And once you really work out your tactics, and some things you sort of do have to change your team up, but once you kind of work out what really works for you in terms of having someone on your team that can heal you and also factoring in maximum health and all that and damage and...
Having the tip of like, there's a lot of kind of tactical depth to it or whatever, where like... have Rabbit Mario on your team, have Mario and Luigi or 2 people with like the they'll shoot if somebody moves skill.
Yes.
Then have Rabbit Mario draw everyone to him with his skill.
Yeah.
And so then they all start firing on these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Brah, brah.
Having the
it's such a hardcore game.
Rabbit Luigi's vamp dash, where he can dash into people and then steal their energy, but then other people can run into them and get energy from them. Those little ways where you kind of work out how to get health back that becomes so vital as the game goes on further and further. And those bits that you'd end up in where those big guys that if you shoot them, they come walking towards you.
I hated those fucks.
I fucking hate those motherfuckers.
But in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. But
mine's in a negative way.
When you work out how to manipulate them and play them into, like you said, drawing them, if you shoot them and they come towards you, but then you've got someone else on your team who does the automatic fire thing and then they go back. Like working out how to, once you get into a groove of working out how to stall them so that they never get close enough to you to do any damage, it's just that, like, that was so satisfying anytime you'd get into that little groove with them, for all the frustration of not working it out and getting absolutely fucked by them.
Totally. All the different characters are a good difference from each other, where they have similar sort of skill, but the specific things that they can do, figuring out how they relate to each other and building a team out of that is great.
And there's an extra story mode DLC thing coming out, I think in the next month. It's like, I think is a new world and a new character, which is great.
Cool. That'd be good.
That's great. Yeah.
I wonder who the character is.
Yeah.
Donkey
We'll
Kong?
find
Yeah,
out.
Donkey.
Yeah.
Donkey from Shrek.
Donkey.
So yeah, that's my number 3.
It's a very good game.
Who'd have thunk it?
All right, this is going to be really interesting.
Oh, yeah, of course.
'Cause
I don't think so at all. I think it's written in the stars.
I disagree.
Okay.
So we're doing number 2 now.
Yeah, we're all doing number 2s.
The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild
Yeah.
Very
is
nice.
number 2.
I might as well say it now. It's my number 2 as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Here we go, baby. Yeah, it's a fucking amazing game.
It's
Yeah.
great.
And
it's so good.
Like, weirdly, if I was being more objective with this list, I think it's technically the best game of this year.
Right.
In terms of design.
I think there's an argument for that.
Yeah. But I had a hell of a lot of fun with it. It's just not my favorite. But it's one of the best games I've ever played.
All right,
Absolutely.
For this, I need to just now say my next 2 for the sake of
Okay.
this conversation. My number 2 is Mario Odyssey.
Right.
And my number 1 is Breath of the Wild.
Great.
Okay.
So for me, the only reason I just felt Breath of the Wild did more to reinvent Zelda for me than
Yeah.
Mario Odyssey did to reinvent
Right.
Mario. Like it
Right.
just broke the chains in such a way, and I think that's part of why Odyssey in my head suffered a little bit. Was just Breath of the Wild built me up to be like, this is what they do now. They just make these fucking gigantic things that are just all-consuming. And Odyssey went in a different direction. That's not a failing on its part, but yeah, Breath of the Wild had to win out in the end for me, even though I generally like the Mario franchise more. But just I mean, it feels like there's sort of nothing more to say about it, but also we could easily just say more about it for
Forever.
2 hours.
That is
Yeah.
a really good point.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I never was into the Zelda franchise at all. I tried the first one. I tried the second one. I think I also tried the first one that was on the SNES. What would that have been?
Link to the Past.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I tried that, and I didn't really get into any of them.
And you tried a little bit of Ocarina at some point?
Yeah, and actively didn't like it.
Right.
It was I played it the end of last year, I think.
Which,
it was it was just outdated by that point.
Yeah.
And went into this skeptical. Like, people were saying it was the best game of all time, and I was like, so interested to see if that was true, and more interested to see if it was not true.
Yeah.
That I bought a Switch and played the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
It's just
There's a massive
yeah.
argument that it's the best game of all time.
absolutely.
I think it'll be a long time before we see anything like this again in terms of just what it did for.
Yeah.
There was a tweet the other day that they're working on the next one
Right.
already.
Fuck.
So
Yeah.
and I hope it's just Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's the most fun world to explore and the most fun way to explore it that I've ever had in a game before,
Yeah.
you know?
I said this at the time, but I think it still rings very true. Co-host of Hey Fam, Angus Truscott, when it first came out and we were all talking about it online, said, this is the game I thought I was playing when I was playing Ocarina of Time and loving it. And I think that's true of I think that's maybe true of Odyssey a little bit too. Like it's kind of like this is what playing Mario 64 felt like back in the day.
Right.
But I mean, it's more true of Breath of the Wild because it's like in Ocarina of Time, because you could travel through time and you could get a horse. It felt so free, but
Right.
it's not. But this is just it's true freedom. Like the fact that it's a game that it's doing nothing and it's doing everything all at the same time.
Totally.
Like,
Like I mentioned before with Assassin's Creed, like I love open world games. I love sandbox games.
Yeah.
And this is just the best one.
yeah.
And like a complete revamp of the idea of it too.
Yeah.
In this crazy way of like it had all the elements from every other open world type game that I've ever liked and smashed them in together and made them into this different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the variety between the different areas in terms of like the visuals and even
Yeah.
the mechanics of what was there.
Yep.
Not in the enemies. Like there
Yeah.
are big glaring flaws in this game is the crazy thing.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
enemy variety is not where it should be.
There's no story.
The story is bad
Yeah.
that is there. They're like I can see why people would hate the weapon breaking mechanics. It didn't really bother me because it
It
forced
didn't
you to
bother me
try
at all.
different
No,
stuff.
it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
It bothered me for about an hour, and then I was like, oh no, this totally makes sense.
Yeah.
The combat shrines are repeated too much.
Oh yeah.
There's a whole bunch of them,
Yeah.
and some of the shrines are not as good as others.
Sure.
The way that the dungeons are smaller and there's only 4 of them kind of sucks.
I like that because I didn't
Yeah.
really love those dungeons in comparison to the rest of the game.
Yeah,
so I was like, yeah, give me some puzzles and then let me get out of here.
Yeah, I've never loved the dungeons in all other Zelda games, so I'm fine with all of that.
And look, splitting it into the shrines is a good idea of having each room in the dungeon just be a different shrine.
Yeah. Right.
Sure, I still would have and I'm pointing that they're not ruin it because it's my second favorite game.
Yeah,
but
it speaks to the quality of the rest of it that these things don't break it. But that my big thing, if I could change anything, would be the variety of enemies. It's crazy that there's this massive world and there's fucking 4 species running around, and they're the same basically. Oh, there's the same ones in the snow, but they're white up here. Yeah. What?
Yeah. Totally.
That's the only. That's my only really big gripe of it. The story I don't mind. Like I like that I like the setup of the champions. I like that they have their little personalities and their little backstories. I'm fine with all of that.
The English voice acting fucking sucked.
Oh, that sucked. Yeah.
And that just wrecked the whatever bits of story there were for me.
I really liked the design of the champions, and I was like fine with what was there, but I really think that it's just a nothing story. It's as bare bones and simple as you can get.
Yeah.
So I don't hate that about it because I like it as, like I said, like it as an open world game, as just a game where you boot it up and you go, fuck, I'm on a mountain. That's right. I guess I'm gliding down here and I'm going through that forest and fucking, the sun's setting and it's purple now. And like, it's just all that stuff is just so fantastic.
For it to be a thing that you do in any order, it kind of would be hard to put a big overarching story in there because the story just basically needs to be, okay, you've been woken up, you have to take this thing out now, off you go.
Sure.
Like, to have anything beats kind of happen would kind of get in the way of being able to do it in whatever order you want and go wherever you want. So I'm kind of fine with the fact that if that's the compromise, then I can see
the little bits and pieces of stories you get in the side quest stuff are fun as well.
Yeah. Side quest stuff's cool,
those bits are nice. And
the Tarrytown thing was sick. Like going and building the little city.
Totally. Every time someone's not fucking actually talking, the story was fun. I really think that the voice acting wrecked it for me.
And I think I only finished it recently, about a week or 2 ago, and I think that really solidified the fact that it was only my number 2 game because I just didn't like it. It was really easy, and then when you reload the save, you just put back before the final boss battle with a star next to the save, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go back in the room, and it's like, oh, you do the battle again? I guess I'll reload, and so you can't. There's no like post.
No, especially when that
story
ending, when that ending implies that is there too. They're like, time to go and revisit everybody and rebuild this world, and you can't.
So that was kind of weird.
In there though, because you do get different stuff happens. If you've gone and gotten all the memories, you get a different ending. So I think that's why that's there for you to be able to go and find stuff again or whatever. It
still felt like there wasn't the drive for me to go and explore the rest of the world after I'd finished it though.
Yeah, which is what I was worried was going to happen and is why I held off finishing it for so long.
And you totally should. If you're still playing that game, don't bother with the ending until you've done everything else.
Yeah, I was the same. I just kind of wanted to... I got on a flight and went, this is it, I'm doing it here.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, I'll still... And I kind of haven't.
Yeah.
That's due to a lot of other stuff coming out as well, but yeah.
And so I've enjoyed it, but the thing that's hampered that enjoyment more is having seen all the broad strokes of the world, having seen all the bits.
Yeah.
Finding the detail is less interesting.
That first, and also, like we said a lot at the time, the fact that this kind of accidentally ended up as a launch game for Switch.
Yeah.
When it's so... If you didn't know that, you'd swear it was absolutely by design because it is so perfect for this console that you can take anywhere. And like that first day of going and buying the Switch, playing a little bit of it here, getting on a plane to Adelaide and kind of playing it in bits and kind of figuring out what the game was on planes and in a hotel, and then like getting home and putting it back on the TV and go, oh, it's big again, cool. Like just all of that kind of like my dick because I'm enjoying it so much. Just the whole thing of figuring it out, and those first couple of months where all I was doing was just going and climbing the towers and filling in the map and just not... I think it'll be a long time before I have an experience in a game that I'll enjoy as much as I did with that. Getting the tower, the map filling out, just gliding off the edge and then just going into the next bit of who the fuck knows what this is in here.
And even a sequel would be cool, but this was such a new way of doing it. It was really this like once in a lifetime kind of thing. And to the detriment of that game after that feeling's gone.
Yes.
To some extent.
There is a game that is like comparable and kind of... If you want to have the example of if they put in a more concrete story that drove you through a world with different environments and different enemies and a story that drove it all. That's
Tetris.
what Red... That's what the Russian game Tetris. That's what Red Dead Redemption was.
Yeah, yeah.
Red Dead Redemption
Yeah.
got the balance, and it also had a post-game game where you could continue to explore. So
Yeah, if you're playing as Jack Link
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, the story thing for me, another thing I loved about this game was just the feeling of, the soundtrack that is in there is great, but it's used so sparingly. And I've heard some people say they don't like that about it and they wish there was more music in it. But I found it, I would sit in bed, I'd play it for like an hour before bed, and just that I found it very meditative, just running around in this, in this kind of quiet world. And
Yeah, when you're on a horse, and which doesn't happen that much because they're kind of fucking useless in that game.
hard to control. I didn't ride them.
Yeah, but
barely.
then when the little doodling starts coming in, and then it starts doing the bit of the Zelda theme on the piano, and it's really cool. But the horse is kind of sucked in that game.
Yeah,
And again, the kind of lack of story just kind of enhanced that feeling for me of like, this is just serene. You're just here hanging out and there's nothing going on. And I think if there'd been more guiding, like, we have to get to this next thing, like that feeling would have been compromised for me. So again, for me and what I liked out of it, I don't see that lack of story as a failing. Like, I think the lack of it is kind of what helps it along for me.
I kind of tend to agree with that because the little flashes of story that are just out in the world are more interesting than the main thing.
Yeah.
But the bits that were in there, I think, were actively bad.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's kind of the
that's fair.
criticism with
That's
that.
fair.
There's a lot of sort of pretty glaring flaws in that game, and who gives a fuck? Because the overall effect of that game the first time you play it is incredible.
Yeah.
And so nitpicking about that stuff, I'm not too fussed about, because I hope that stuff they fix for a second one. I think it'll stand out more if it's in the next one.
Yeah.
But
I feel I'm jealous of anyone that gets to play it for the first time. I wish I could go back to just that first weekend of just even doing the plateau and still not knowing what it was yet. And getting frustrated that trying to climb a mountain and doing the jump, which uses your stamina more quickly, and sliding down and getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I went, just take it. Oh, okay, this is what this is. It's all about just taking your time.
Yes.
You can't get up unless you just go at a slow pace and locking into that and going, okay, this is what this is going to be.
the way that all the shit in that game interacts with each other as well is so cool. The weird like kind of physics system they have built into that game works so well.
Yeah.
And just the whole thing does a great job of making you feel in this really well realized place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what all of it's about.
We talked about Cuphead, how it's like a cohesive visual and like auditory style, and how that's art. That game is art. But Breath of the Wild is art in the way that it's the visuals, the music, the sound design, the gameplay itself, the decisions about the gameplay, and the story, all of that combined is so artful. Like, that is a really true representation of art.
Totally.
As a game.
It has a completely singular vision that is, in some ways, bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where you can point out all these fucking flaws with it, but it doesn't bring the game down.
Yeah.
If this had
Yeah.
no gameplay, if there were no enemies in the world, if there was no...
That sounds pretty bad.
If there was no story, if there were no shrines, no dungeons, just that world, walking around in that world itself would still be one of the better pieces of art of this year.
It reminded me of World of Warcraft, where all the different bits were so different from each other, and every time you walked into a new one, you're like, fuck, this is enormous and incredible.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar, even from a color palette point of view, weirdly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we talked about our favorite moments in gaming, and like just the other day, I was just like climbing up this arch over the end of a bridge, and I was just climbing up it, going like, oh, I reckon I can get to the top of that. And I got to the top, and the sun was setting behind me, and I turned around, and there was a lake and the bridge over the lake, and then a fucking flying dragon just kind of came out of nowhere and hovered past, and I was like, this is this could be my favorite game.
It's so cool. That fucking shadow. Shadow. You're so high up and you can see your shadow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like
those dragons were a little disappointing, because the first time you see one of them, you're like, what the fuck
happens
And then
here?
they're kind of a bit lame in the way they're actually gameplay relevant.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like I had a whole bunch of moments in my head that were my favorite moments of the game, and there's just been, or just one of my favorite moments of gaming of the year, and there's just so many of them that it just became impossible to catalog all of them, and it just kind of coalesces into this whole big feeling. But
with Zelda, it's just standing somewhere peaceful and looking at the fucking thing they've built.
Yeah.
That draw distance that they knew they had to nail.
Yeah.
And the way
Did you
that they
guys
have.
climb to the very highest spire of Hyrule Castle? Because
I don't know if Hyrule
I don't think I
Castle,
did,
no.
no.
I did thinking that's where you were supposed to go.
Right.
Like, I was like, well, it's the big thing in the middle. You got to get to the top. So I just climbed all the way to the top. And you can just kind of like hang off the top that. And it doesn't take any stamina. You just like hang in there and you can just look around at the entire fucking world.
Right.
It's really
That's great.
cool.
And looking at all the places where you've been and going, I know what I did there. I know what I did there.
Yeah,
I wonder
yeah.
what that place. Yeah, it's a fucking incredibly like any open world game that isn't. I think this is part of what Assassin's Creed suffered from for me.
Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn, which I ended up liking the back half of that main story, but every other aspect of the game not so much.
Right.
Every open world game I'm going to judge on this now
Yeah.
a little bit, and that's maybe unfair because it is kind of its own different thing.
Yeah.
But it really did a good job.
It's just
Good summary.
it's an incomparable, an incomprehensible level of achievement.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly think, how the fuck do you set out to do something like this and execute it? Like, it's mind-boggling. Like,
Yeah.
you can't fathom it.
It was The Witcher 3 for me before this,
Yeah.
where that has that same massive world,
Yeah.
and it functions differently. It's the climbing and shit, and just making you so in charge of where you go.
It's more than that though as well, because like you're right, Tommy. Why it's so mind-boggling to me is like, you've taken elements of existing games and you've presented them in a way that is the most elegant and like beautiful way it could ever be presented, and you've done it for every aspect of the game.
Yeah.
Like, how are you that brilliant that you've managed to nail every aspect of a game?
and
like
it just
this?
feels
But then
perfect.
not nail a whole bunch of things as well in this kind of crazy weird way, but
But also
the feeling of it is exactly perfect.
Yeah.
And it all just feels very natural.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those are the
Yes.
like the enemy thing especially is what stands out, because you're in these crazy different places, and occasionally like those Moldugas in the Gerudo Desert, the big sandfish thing. More stuff like that, just like regional
you're right.
differences.
You're absolutely right. It's weird that they're in that one bit, but there's not comparable stuff in
And
other bits.
There are with like the little lizards and shit, you know, all the kind of fauna does, and the flora even plays by those rules.
Yep.
But then it's all fucking hobgoblins or whatever everywhere.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
guess that makes sense because Ganon sent them all out, but fuck you. It,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
And the bears and shit, all the like that
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
is different and cool, but you really notice it with the things you're interacting with don't change that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the
That's true.
towns and stuff are so different from each other.
It has
that's
that
cool.
rare thing that is rare in games. I mean, there's games that I think are some of the best that don't have this, where you forget that this is a thing that was designed by people.
Yes.
Like, it really, you just feel like it's this world just kind of dropped in front of you, and it's none of it's man-made. And I think the best games do that, but also some of the games that are the best don't do that, and it doesn't matter. But it's such a rare thing to be able to pull off.
Yep.
And I think that's I think it's just down to so many factors. But I think that's the best way of summing it up. It's just an elegance, and it just feels like the whole what a new iteration of something I think in a perfect world should do is like the whole franchise has been building up to this moment where it's like, okay, Skyward Sword was the last one, and people kind of hated that because of how linear it was and how hand-holdy it was. And so this feels like a direct response to that, but it's also drawing on so many of the best bits of this. What is it now? 25?
Something like that. And it
franchise and
30, 30 something. And it goes back and reassesses what did the first, like, what was the goal of the first one.
Yeah.
Right.
And starts from square one again.
Yeah.
Right.
I've always been with the Zelda franchise. Liked it enough because it's Nintendo, and gotten them, but never played too much of them. Like, because I just kind of tap out with them, and this has made me like love the franchise.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've loved all of them but one.
Yeah.
Kind of two. The first one isn't that good.
Whatever.
Either.
Yeah.
Right.
But and it is just a complete reinvention. And I want to see the Majora's Mask to this now. I want them to do the exact same thing. I want them to get more risky with the weirdness of the world.
I really, really hope that's what's happening.
We'll see.
I don't know how you go back to making an old school style one.
Because it always feels like it does that as well. It goes vanilla, weird.
Right.
Yeah, you're kind of right.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So I want to see the weird one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to your guys' number one.
Well, we've already talked about it. Persona 5.
Yeah.
Right.
It's you're right, Knox. Like, there's an argument that Breath of the Wild's technically the best, but this game just hits me in all the right spots, and it's my interests, my like love of the style, the things that you could call out as flaws or idiosyncrasies are in my opinion, just more benefits. Like
what?
Like the turn-based combat. Some people don't like it.
Right.
This is the best version of turn-based combat.
Very linear, but
very linear
in a cool way.
But in a cool way. It's very time-consuming, but I like spending that time. It's also very structured, but I like what you do within that structure. Yeah. There's a lot of limitations, but it all funnels you towards this greater purpose and this greater sense of fun and satisfaction and accomplishment.
It doesn't dip. It ends really strong. It's the most sort of emotionally invested I've been in a game this year, more so than Breath of the Wild even. Like every moment I spent with it, I wanted to see the next bit. Yep. Breath of the Wild, I got bored of at some point.
Right.
Breath of the Wild and Persona, like they're
opposites,
both
right?
they're both Japanese RPGs, but they're complete opposite ends of the gaming spectrum.
The really sort of large scale positive aspects of both of them are exactly the same, where it's this cohesive thing.
Yeah.
It's this totally singular vision. Every element is driving towards the same exact goal, which is like this really stylish story that they're trying to tell.
And pure confidence in what you're doing.
It's got so much bravado to it. It's just like, I know exactly what I am, fuck you.
Like Persona goes, it's going to take you 10 hours to... You're going to have to click through a tutorial for 10 hours. Breath of the Wild goes, you get nothing and that's it. Like, it's real. They're both extremely gutsy.
Yeah. If I could have had a tied number one, they would have been tied.
Right.
Which we set up this. There's no reason we couldn't have.
For me, it's a clear number one. It's just like the way like you can kind of smell what that cafe smells like. You can feel the kind of muggy, subway tunnels. You can... It's so
when it's
palpable
raining outside the window, the music changes, and it's all like it's all this attention to fucking detail.
Totally.
That it really draws you into it, and it fucking finishes strong too.
I'm so excited.
The back the back quarter of that game or whatever is this really cool. Just like when that game finished, I've not just sort of sat there and thought about it for ages afterwards.
Yeah,
like for weeks afterwards, just keep thinking about it. And not like, oh, I want more. I think it just perfectly. It's like it's a set thing, and you play it once. I believe I wouldn't play it again.
Yeah,
and it's just this really great singular fucking piece of art again that I loved every second of.
It's also so gamey, like where Breath of the Wild is like trying to take you or put you into the world and make you forget you're playing a game almost, like you were saying, Tommy. Like it's just a world you're in.
And having this stuff of like, if you imagine in the real world something should happen, it should happen in the game. And like chopping down these logs and then they roll and set them on fire. Which is all very cool.
Persona 5 is like you have 6 different kinds of skills and you upgrade the skills by eating a burger or talking to a cat or working at a florist. Like it's all of these very gamey systems that it's just somehow fun to interact with every single one of them. It's so good.
The story of it is great. It's fucking... I can't wait until in 10 years' time when you guys have finished it.
I reckon, so it's taken me, 7 months to get halfway through. I reckon I might finish it over the next week and a half.
That's kind of what I did as well at some point, is really fucking ramped it up because it just grabs you at some point. It gets kicking and going.
I want to wrap this up so we can fucking finish off all this shit and I can play it. Genuinely, that's all I've been thinking about for the last hour.
Well, it's very good to the point where I think it's my game of the year.
Yeah. Yep. It's my number one.
Yeah. Well, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it, boys. There's one last little category that we were saving to... obviously you save the most important category until the end of the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
We got all the technical awards out of the way.
We just did Best Actor, now we're doing Best Picture.
Yeah,
this is it.
That's right.
Here it is.
Crash. Remember that from 3 hours ago?
I know. This is maybe people going like, oh, fucking more. It's finally here, what everyone's been waiting for all year. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of talk about who's going to take it home, but we're here to report on the Fashion Report Most Fashionable Video Game Character of 2017.
Yeah.
Tommy, your nominee.
I'm going to say Mario from Mario Odyssey. I mean, whether it was a fedora or a clown costume or an emperor's robes.
The big three.
He just pulled it off. Didn't matter what it was. He made it his own and he just... Yeah, real style.
I'd say there's an argument for Mario that it's a quantity over quality situation. Does he need to dress up as a full literal skeleton?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, I'll take...
Should that be the most expensive thing in the game by far? I think that's debatable.
To the point where I'm never ever going to buy it because it's too expensive.
I don't know why they decided that the appeal of being a skeleton is worth $9,999 in-game dollars, but sure.
Ben Vanel, your nominee.
Well, as happens frequently with the Oscars, the best director, often wins Best Picture.
Sure.
So Persona 5 is going to win my fashionable game of the year award.
A lot of good fashion in that game.
A lot of Japanese school uniforms.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, my dude.
Right. We know what's going on here. You want to fuck the cat.
The main character wears a leather trench coat. It's just a very stylish game.
It is a very stylish game. My nominee for the Fashion Report Most Fashionable Character is every character from PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Okay.
I think in terms of real fashion, there's some shit people get really prideful about what they're wearing in that game.
Yeah, right.
You can buy and sell things that you get randomly for real world money. There are certain, there's a purple skirt that's sold for hundreds of real world dollars.
Yeah,
it's fucking stupid and weird, and so in my opinion is the best representation of fashion.
Great.
Very nice. All valid choices.
Yep, I guess the winner is
my choice.
Video game.
Okay.
Can I do my real life fashion report fashion of the year?
Okay.
It was you when you came to do a live Dum Dum Club podcast and you turned up, you walked there in the rain and you turned up soaked.
In the fucked rain.
And
it was fucked sudden rain.
And you had to wear you had to get some of our merch off us and wear that.
It was like 5XL.
It was too big for you.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the shame on your face at having to wear our merchandise as well. That is absolutely hands down my fashion moment of the year.
Well, it's just a pleasure to be nominated.
Well, we did it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this extra long episode. Thank you for thank you for listening over the year. Thank you for all the feedback we receive. And
get ready for next year to be way worse for video games than this one.
Thanks to everyone who supports the show on Patreon or writes in to let us know that you're enjoying it. Thank you to you two gentlemen for being a ray of sunshine in my week every year.
No, thanks to you, Tommy.
We haven't said this on the show yet, have we? We've got a Bandcamp episode, a recent Bandcamp episode. Have we plugged that yet?
No,
we did our top five.
Maybe I said it in the last week's one, but anyway, it's
top
still
five
there.
top five soundtracks in games. If you have a bit of spare time over the summer and you're looking for something extra to listen to, you can get that at our Bandcamp for $1 or more.
That's right. Had a lot of good feedback for this one.
Yeah,
people are loving it.
Our sound guy did some. Adam Knox did some wonderful work on the pots and pans.
I ripped a few goddamn YouTube videos. It was real good.
Check that out. Yes, you can support the show on Patreon if you would like to. You can find links to all that stuff and what we're doing. filthycasuals.com.au. Thank you very much for listening. And as we say here at the end of every episode of Filthy Casuals,
have a very happy new year.
Wonderful.
Do a funny one.
Never.
This podcast is part of the Planet Broadcasting Network.
Visit planetbcasting.com for more podcasts from our great mates. I mean, if you want. It's up to you.